From the Hanging with Web Show TV's Bargain Basement Studio in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada, it's Pillow Talk with Willow Schuyler.
Will you take me to Winnipeg?
I will, someday. Toronto, Montreal, Quebec, Winnipeg.
Now what's this guy doing up here in Manitoba?
He was holding the map up.
Every salvage mission that's been through this system has disappeared. Even those old pirates out at Winnipeg Drift say it's cursed.
Cursed. Winnipeg's got a great ballet. Have a good time, I swear to God.
Sweet guinea pig of Winnipeg! They've taken over our company!
Balderdash! I never agreed to that!
I should have stayed in Winnipeg, you know? I had a nice gallery, 3 paintings in the wall.
Are you kidding? And you look back. Born home, Quebec. Drafted out of the juniors in the 5th round to the Toronto Maple Leafs. Played for a year with the Leafs, then traded to the Winnipeg Jets, then to Calgary, then to Boston.
Wow.
So Winnipeg must get pretty cold up there.
That's it! Back to Winnipeg!
Good evening, everyone. This is Willow's Pillow Talk. I am your host, Willow Schuyler. With me tonight is my co-host, Nicole and Brian, and Tom Hutchinson. I am so happy to have you on my show finally. How's life been treating you?
It's good. It's good. Yeah.
Good. So you are a huge horror movie fan, and I love the fact that I get to geek out with so many people about the subject. Tom, what movies are you interested in? Do you love the most?
I mean, most of what I dig the most is, I grew up 70s and 80s horror. So, I mean, that's where the nostalgia will always land for me. And I pity the millennials and the kids growing up today with the horror that they get now, because it's not what it was in the 80s. It in some ways there's better elements, but there's really something about what was going on in the 70s and 80s that is, even while cheesy in a lot of cases, it was still a lot of cases groundbreaking with special effects and there's a reason that the characters created in the 70s and 80s are still with us. And I won't necessarily say flourishing, but they're still here. They're still brands. Michael, Jason, Freddy, Chucky, they still keep coming around. And so for me, I literally right before I got on the show, I was watching Halloween 4. So, it's just there's a moment in time that everybody connects with, but I think that when the millennials and the stuff and they reach our age and they're thinking back on what they got and what they're nostalgic for, it's just not going to be as good, honestly, as the 70s and 80s. It was such a huge time for creativity.
And you know what? I'm a huge zombie movie fan, and the makeup just seems so much like it's getting better now. But sure. I kind of like the the nod to the original Night of the Living Dead. I will always love that movie, no matter how cheesy it is. I just enjoy watching it.
Yeah, well, I think part of the fun of the old stuff is there was no CGI. Yeah. Or very, very minimal anyway. And so every time you saw the gore or the bones breaking or the biting or whatever, they had to figure out how to legitimately do it. And so nowadays it's like, well, we'll just CGI even the blood. Like I watch action movies where there's not even any squib packs anymore. It's just CGI blood. And I'm like, this looks stupid. And it takes me out of the movie like immediately, because I'm like, that's CGI. So that's again, that's one of the fun things is practical effects is they had to figure out how to do all of this ridiculous stuff. Mm-hmm. And if you ever watch the old movies on like Blu-ray and you watch the commentaries where they talk about like, oh, this is how we had to figure out how to, stab this guy in the neck and make it go all the way through. Like they had to do insane things. And that's part of the fun for the old stuff.
Hey Tom, I got a question for you.
Yep.
Since you're a comic guy, then do you see the parallels of why people enjoy older horror films to like the older comics?
To some degree, a lot of, in my opinion, a lot of the older comics are more written, while not without message. They're more written as an entertainment value element. A lot of stuff when it was created in comics, the X-Men and so on back in the day, they were very much created for a purpose. Like we're the X-Men, we're going to talk about, racial inequality and all that kind of stuff. But ultimately they were entertainment first and not message or agenda first. And a lot of stuff nowadays is agenda first. It's I'm coming in with this, whatever it is that I want to tell, and I'm going to use the X-Men to tell it. I'm going to use Superman to tell it. I'm going to use whoever to tell it, versus coming in and saying, well, I want to write Superman, and while I write Superman, I can tell a message. And it's sometimes a hard line to figure out. Sometimes it's not always clear cut, black and white, but so I think a lot of the stuff in the 80s, there wasn't a lot of like, hey, I mean, there's no message in Halloween. It's a dude shows up and kills his sister and then comes back and the town and kills more people. Like, there's no message there. It's just entertainment. It's just supposed to take you out of reality for a couple of hours and let you get scared or cheer for the heroes, or boo for the villains, or cheer for the villains if you want. It doesn't matter. I mean, a lot of that stuff was designed for us to hate these stupid kids. And even as kids, we hated the stupid kids. Like, that's a stupid kid. Just kill that stupid kid. And that's fine.
Exactly. Although this week, like, for some reasons, I've been having like this, like my brain has not been functioning right at all this week, and I would definitely be like one of the people that die because of my stupidity. So yeah, no, you definitely do cheer for the villain in the slasher films, and as twisted as my brain is going to get right now, I actually look forward to the creativity of these deaths, though.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Not just like getting stabbed or slashed, just like how creative I think it was Rob Zombie's version of Jason, sorry, where he wrapped the people up in the sleeping bag and boiled them to death. I'm just like, that is wow.
Well, one of the most memorable kill scenes in all of these horror things was Jason taking the campers in their sleeping bags and smacking them against a tree. It's just like, what am I watching right now? I mean, it's crazy. So yeah, and that was another thing is even if you go back to like early Friday the 13th, the first couple of films before Jason was in the second one, but the first one, spoiler alert if you didn't know, the kills were interesting, right? But as the films went on, they realized even themselves, we got to up the ante. We got to figure out how to do this a little more weird, a little more funny. It became shtick over time. Like, we know what we are now, and we have to kind of keep raising the bar. And then when you had Michael Myers, you had Freddy, and you had Jason, you had all these guys running around at the same time. They're all feeding off of each other, and like, okay, well, Jason did this, so we can't do it, so we have to do this with Freddy, and so on and so on. So yeah, it was definitely a fun period.
Mm-hmm. And there's nothing wrong with the cheesiness that Freddy Krueger has become, and I mean, like, even Chucky, like you live for the jokes when you go to see their movies in theater, but you also want a reason why they're killing people.
Yes. God, preach, please. Holy shit. Yes. I mean, sometimes here's the reality. Sometimes it doesn't matter. Sometimes you just got a possessed little dude, doll or whatever running around. Sometimes you just go and have fun with it. But if you're going to legitimately try and like franchise something, you have to have more than just Well, I killed somebody today. Well, yeah, but you did that last time. So the more you can build a story around what's going on, the better that character and the whole series as a whole can become.
Mm-hmm. And I know they film these kind of movies in Florida. And where are you from, Tom?
Is there just thought about something. Is there a horror movie in Florida? Like, is there a Florida horror movie? Like, generally they're all like Midwest, like Elm Street. It's all Midwest. Like, Jason went to New York, famously, but like, there's alligator movies certainly for that kind of stuff. But like, there's no slashers in Florida. There's something there. There's something there.
But
I am in the Midwest. To answer your question.
But there's something about the Midwest that's synonymous with like Halloween and that, like, just the time of year. Yeah. And
I think a lot of it is small town too, because like if you put Michael Myers in Los Angeles, like in Hollywood, like there's
nobody would
people.
Notice.
Yeah, right. It doesn't work, but you can kind of slip into the small town and kind of cause problems a lot easier. Sure.
Well, and I think it's just like, who's going to run? Like, everybody is scantily clad here. It's too freaking hot. So you really can't be upset about that. So he can't really kill anybody because they're naked. And he can't really kill anybody because, I don't know. Like, I guess it just wouldn't work here.
I think Michael Myers would actually bust out laughing if he ran into a Florida man.
Maybe. He'd be like, yeah, that's why they're called Florida.
That's so true. In Winnipeg, we had the Cult of Chucky filmed here, which was really cool. Seeing all the set pictures come out and seeing what used to be our police headquarters be part of like the insane asylum. So yeah, that was kind of neat, and it'll be it'll be remembered. That building will be remembered for decades, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, 100%, 100%.
They tore
in fact, the old Michael Myers house still is standing from the original movie, but it's been moved. It actually got moved from its original wherever it was in Pasadena to somewhere else in Pasadena, and it's some sort of like government building now. It's all repainted. It's like yellow and white, and but it is legitimately the house. It's just in a different spot, and you'd never guess that it was, Michael's house.
There's an art gallery in front of it.
Oh, right. So there's an art gallery in front of it. Like, in case you didn't hear him, because.
Oh, that's
because Sean Clark just had an event there, remember?
Yeah.
Nick Castle signed until like 3 a.m.
Yeah. Brian was all.
The Nightmare on Elm Street house went up for sale. So, I mean, we can, put our money together.
What's really cool is like when Sean Clark goes in and he like put side by side the first time he went versus the later time that he went, and how things are similar, and then how that house was also used in Halloween. So it was really interesting. Like, I like it when they do cool stuff like that, because then you kind of get, it's like something that's a secret.
Yeah.
It's kind of nice to know something that's a secret, and then you're not as scared. But yeah, Brian is so mean to me.
Oh no.
Okay, so I am the girl that probably shouldn't be sitting on this panel, because I like horror movies and I like being scared, but the jump scare shit kind of like,
oh sure,
I can't. So, and I'm also the person that's like, no, I'm not going to go to the haunted house because people jump out at you there, and I can't have somebody grab me,
haunted houses,
or I'm going to punch you in the face. So Brian's like, well, you remember this, because he was putting them together for me. So he's like, you remember this movie, right? And I'm like, it's Lights Out. Okay. So Brian's like, he's like, hey, you remember this movie, right? And I'm like, remind me about what it was. Right. And he's like, yeah, so I read the back, and I'm like, hey, show me the trailer. And I'm like, I remember this movie. And I hated the fact, like, it scared me. I liked it. It was a good movie. Don't get me wrong. It's a good movie. But the jump scares, because I don't like the idea of when you turn the lights on, you can't tell where this thing is. Then you turn the lights off and it's freaking in your face.
Yeah.
That was probably that comes from my childhood. Like, someday I'll just sit around and tell ghost stories. But that's what it is. So Brian's like, did you know it was based on a short film? I was like, no. It's like, I never showed you the short film. I was like, here. So he puts he gets on YouTube, he puts the short film on, he turns off all the lights. He's like, turn your phone off. I'm like, okay. He made me watch, like, what was it, 3 minutes? This movie was only 3 minutes long. So at the end of the movie, she turns the light on, the lights on, she pulls the blankets off of her head, and she turns her head, and the thing is there, like, staring her in the face with this weird eyes and the smile and I'm just like, oh my God. So I didn't expect it to be there because, of course, I'm stupid and I should know the rules, but clearly I don't know the rules. And so I'm like, ah! And he's like laughing at me because I really did scream. I was legitimately scared. And this time I screamed. Usually I just jump out of my chair like 47 meters down when the shark is going to eat everybody. I'm jumping out of my chair. And I didn't scream, but this time I screamed. He thought it was hilarious. I was like, you're not funny.
You're going to have to send me that link later.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. It's a fucked up thing. And I didn't realize that they made a whole movie out of it. Like that I didn't know existed, but I know the clip you're talking about. And the jump scares are like, yeah, there's two scares. There's like legitimately like, oh, this is horrifying, scared, and then there's like, oh, you got me. Okay, you got me. Something.
And then you feel dumb because you screamed at it or you jumped and you're like,
yeah, exactly. But again, it's not even always. I mean, they're very, very mechanical in how they do it, because it's not just a matter of you saw something on the screen. It's also this instant burst of music, like bang, and you're like, oh my God. So it's they're engineered, and they still are effective, but they are engineered, and that's a whole different sort of like the Amityville Horror remake is just nothing but jump scares. But the original movie is not. The original movie is like, this is weird, man. I don't like it here. And so, there's definitely multiple ways of doing, I guess scaring your audience.
And it depends on what you like too, because if you like the jump scares, every once in a while when there's that jump scare and it gets you, then you're back involved in what it is that's happening. Yeah. Like in Halloween Kills, like, there were a couple places where I did jump because it got me. I didn't think, I thought something else was going to happen, and it's something.
Well, that's when they're at their best, is if they're misdirecting you.
Yeah.
And then they get you. Then they did their job. Then it's not, yeah.
And speaking of Halloween Kills, we have a.
I really enjoyed it. And it really, I thoroughly enjoyed that movie.
I'm gonna bite my tongue a little bit because I hated that movie.
Oh.
And I can tell you exactly why, but I also understand. And incidentally, I'm a huge Halloween fan from the beginning, John Carpenter, all the way through all of the various weird reboots and so on. Yeah. I'm a fan of the franchise.
Are you a fan of the White Horse?
I don't know what that is.
Rob Zombie's Halloween 2.
Oh. No, nothing. I like nothing. Rob Zombie, zero. Okay. If Rob Zombie did it, I don't like it. That's what it comes down to.
Wow.
I have, when he did the first Halloween. This is all kinds of weird ranting going around. When he did the first Halloween, I thought it was interesting how he decided to give us the kid part, like the Michael as a kid. So I give him credit for trying to bring something that hadn't been done to the franchise before. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, if what we were taught through the first 6 movies was that Michael's just evil and blah 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 blah, whatever, then it doesn't matter what he is as a kid. It's not relevant. And so while it was interesting to see, it didn't do anything for me. It was not like there was no grand scheme there.
Yeah.
And so with 2018 Halloween and with Halloween Kills, it's kind of the same thing, right? Except that even here we have an even more extreme retcon, because now we've taken away, spoiler alert, everybody run away if you don't know yet. Laurie is no longer Michael's sister. That's been removed. All of the stuff that came after, like the Thorn, Cult of Thorn, all that kind of stuff, all that stuff's gone. Everything's erased. So you have basically a clean slate to do whatever you want to do with 2018 and Halloween Kills. But what we ended up with was basically just an aping of H2O, which is Laurie hiding out, waiting for Michael to come. Okay, whatever.
Yeah.
Kind of been there, seen it. I kind of treated 2018 as like a new origin story. So I'm like, okay, just tell me where we are. Fine. But now when we move on, we like we just talked about at the very beginning, right? Is we got to have that story. Like, what is happening here?
Yeah.
So with Halloween Kills, I was in there ready to get like, okay, what is the story now? You've decided that everything's removed. Fine, clean slate. What is happening now? And again, we didn't really get anything. Halloween Kills brought nothing to the table from a story standpoint. And it just rehashed things that we had already seen. The mob scene was straight out of, Halloween 4, which I just watched tonight, where they're all running around and shooting people in bushes and stuff. So Halloween Kills, well, again, like visually it was great. And again, you had some amazing kills. Like the visuals were really good. From a story standpoint, I'm like, you didn't bring me anything. You took away everything that I knew and you didn't replace it with anything. And ultimately, if they're going to do something, supposedly, again, spoiler alert, guys, supposedly there's a big twist finale for the finale. Now, whatever that means is whatever it means. But to me, I shouldn't have to do 6 hours to get a relevant piece, especially if that's legitimately the end. Then it's like, well, what am I doing with the piece? I got the good piece, but now we're done again. Like, are we going to retcon again? Like, I don't know what we're doing with this franchise. So it's difficult for me. Even though I like Jamie Lee Curtis is back. That was cool. Tommy Jarvis was brutal for me. I like Anthony Michael Hall, but this was like a drinking game. Every time they say evil dies tonight, take a shot. And you'll come away with alcohol poisoning before the movie's over. It was just, it was so dialogue. The dialogue was so bad that I just was like, oh my God, really? Are we doing this? So, okay, now you talk.
I love your fresh takes on this though, because I have yet to see it, but
it's worth being able to hear somebody else's ideas too, that's coming from a different like viewpoint of it. Because like for me, I enjoyed the part of the story where they're discussing in the hospital room, Hawkins and Laurie about, if I hadn't done that night, if I had done this or whatever, and she doesn't really understand. And then they allude to, so they could have been something if, things could have turned out different if Michael hadn't shown up and kind of thing. And I kind of like enjoyed that part of the story.
Sure.
I enjoyed a lot of the kills. There wasn't a second of, like downtime where you were not being entertained by something tragic. But I mean, I've learned to take a lot of the slasher movies just for what they are. It's just a good fun ride.
Sure. And I think that if this was a brand new franchise, like if this was just Halloween in a vacuum, I think it would be fine because we don't know anything else. But, coming from a franchise that has 40 years behind it, you kind of need to have something. Anybody that's new to the franchise or younger kids, like they're going to love it just because it is Halloween for them, like Halloween was for us in 77, 78. So I totally understand why it's succeeding overall. I totally understand why people like it. And I totally, all your point about like what they were talking about, that's all great. Like even movies that I hate that I'm like, this is a crap movie. Even crap movies have elements that work and they help sort of keep it afloat, even if you don't like the movie. And Halloween Kills is no different. But a lot of that stuff is, again, it doesn't move us forward. It kind of takes us back. Yeah. And the one thing that really frustrated me was they did talk about, and this was in the trailer, so that's why I had like hope for this, is there was a scene where Laurie talks about how Michael's killing, and every time he kills, he transcends his humanity. Yeah. And I was like, oh, okay, so we're going somewhere here with this idea that he is evil. He is not, because like Loomis would always say, he's not a human being. He's just evil, whatever. So I was like, okay, so he's transcending. So there's a purpose. There's something going on here. Now, maybe we'll get to learn what that is in Halloween Ends. But again, it shouldn't take 6 hours to sort of, sink the hook. Yeah. When Halloween Kills was over, I should have been like, oh my God, when does the next movie come out? Like, I need to know what's happening. Like, I need that cliffhanger. But the cliffhanger that we got wasn't really powerful enough.
It wasn't a cliffhanger, really.
Yeah, exactly.
The Blu-ray version is going to be the ending people like.
See, I don't like that idea. The fact that they're gonna we have to buy the Blu-ray version to find out what their point of the whole thing is.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. Like I don't mind deleted scenes and stuff. You want to show me things that you got cut, like we didn't have room for it, whatever. This slowed the movie down. I get that 100%, and I like seeing that stuff. But don't tell me that there's like, hey, we got this alternate ending for y'all. And I'm like, no, put that in the movie if it's that good. If that
make that your ending. Crowd pleaser, why not have that one?
Right.
Okay. See, they did that with my friends that saw the movie 2 years ago. The ending you see on the Blu-ray is the ending they saw. But James Gordon Green, he changed the ending because he's changing ends. Like he's reworking ends. So he's taking the movie in a little bit of a different direction than what that ending had. So that's why they changed the ending.
I sometimes wonder why I'm sitting on this show and you're not. Like, you're stealing my thunder. No, like, I don't get to...
Sit down, Brian.
I just wanted to say that. I'm just saying that people are going to love...
Well, and that's fine, Brian. Like, if you're going to change your finale, then that's fine. But you still have given me 4 hours of Halloween with no specific purpose of what's happening. Like not even threads of what's to come. Like literally nothing is happening.
Well, and even threads that didn't connect to anything else. Like there were lots of things that got said, and if you were paying attention, okay. Mm-hmm. But if you know what I mean, like it's
100%.
I mean, if they did,
I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it for just the sheer fun of it. Like we all sat and watched it together, and
there's good stuff in it. There's good stuff in it. Yep.
So I guess at the end of the day, like, was it a cinematic masterpiece? No, but was it fun? Yeah, and it was a good way for the kids to be interested again in Michael Myers. Like, Brighton or Oliver has seen every single Halloween film and thinks it's the coolest thing ever. Mm-hmm. But he also is really weird and likes a whole lot of the other things. Like,
no, he's 100% right. He's 100% right.
I mean, he loves scary stuff. He always has. Like 4 years old, walked over to the DVD stand and pulled Puppet Master off the
shelf.
It
had toys.
Daddy watch.
Because there were toys on it, of course. Yeah.
I said, they're bad toys, baby. You don't want to watch that. He's like, Daddy, watch. And I think maybe like a year of telling him no. And Brian finally put it in for him. And he says, Daddy, the toys aren't bad.
That's funny.
The man made them bad. And I said, okay, well, my kid is smart. But this is still something I have to explain to people about why he's watching things like this. Like, well, he likes it.
I was at a panel one time at San Diego Comic-Con with Robert Kirkman, Walking Dead guy, and he was shocked because he had a kid in the front row whose parents were like, yeah, we let him watch The Walking Dead. It's fine. He was like 10 years old. So, it's all relative. It's all relative. Some people can handle it. Some people can't.
Yeah.
And you just sometimes you kind of just got to let them do it. and then they'll figure it out for themselves really fast. Like that's either for them or that is not for them. and
my husband will not watch horror movies with me. He would rather, not be home if I'm watching a horror movie because he can't sleep after. And we made that mistake of watching The Grudge together. And believe it or not, it was during the day that we watched the movie, but it messed him up.
It doesn't matter.
It messed him up.
But it depends on what scares you too. Like,
sure, 100%.
For me, paranormal things generally don't scare me. It's got to be really bad to get inside my head that I can't sleep. So like The Ring, that damn movie, I don't think I slept a solid night for 2 weeks. And that same kind of weird like movement is the same thing that was in The Grudge. Yeah. And so when I watched The Grudge, it made me very uncomfortable. And I don't think it was something I didn't sleep, but I just didn't like. I don't know. It scared me, and it did scare me. Like even now, things that make that motion, and I just don't like it. It makes me very
Yeah.
It's supposed to. I mean, body doesn't move that way. Body doesn't move that way. So if you see it that way, like all these exorcism movies where they're like, twisting around, it's like, yo,
right.
But to me, none of those exorcist movies even touches The Exorcist. Like it's not even close, because again, you're talking about like a physical scare versus like an existential dread that's just hanging on you through this entire movie. And again, practical effects, right? So she's there. What the hell? How are they doing this bed? She's floating around, her head's spinning around. She's got the stuff scratching on her stomach. Help me. Like, oh my God. I can't even watch the movie. Like I'm 50 years old. All right. I bought this thing on Steelbook last year because I hadn't seen it in a long time. And I love the movie. I popped it in about 6 months ago because I still hadn't watched it. I was like, I don't know, it was like 11 o'clock at night or whatever. I'm like, okay, I'm going to watch this movie because I've seen it a long time. I didn't get 30 minutes into the movie. And I'm like, nope, this is no longer a nighttime movie. This is a daytime only movie. It absolutely shudders me. Even now. So yeah, once you find what scares you, you either avoid it, or you let it scare the crap out of you, and whatever your reaction is, hopefully you walk away laughing like going to bed now.
I am unable. Like I have not watched the entirety of The Exorcist from beginning to end ever in my life.
Oh, really? Okay.
Well, and the jump scares, we talk about the jump scares, right? So when they had I don't know what it would have been, the 25th, 35th anniversary, something like that. They re-released it in theaters, and they added scenes to it, number one, but then they also added throughout the movie these little subliminal moments of this white skull face, like just flashing, like in random parts of the movie. And if you're not ready for it, you're just walking and everything's like quiet and everything. And then there's like this, and then like in the darkness, it's like, wah! And then it's gone. And you're just like, whoa, what the hell was that? And that freaked me out too. So, yeah.
So I can honestly say not in its entirety. I've seen clips. I've seen whatever's been, highlighted in different kinds of documentaries that I've watched, but I've never seen the entire movie. Wow. And I won't. So like every movie, but every movie is that's like that. I think I've seen The Omen all the way through.
Great. That's a great one.
I think that's the only one I've seen all the way through. I've seen The Exorcism of Emily Rose. I've seen The Haunting in Connecticut. I've seen the Conjuring movies, like all of them.
Yep.
I've done all that. So it's not possession necessarily.
Sure.
But it's that kind of possession.
100%. I agree.
That. Yep. Like it's a child. It's very unsettling for me. So I have never watched it all the way through.
And they are making Blumhouse is making a sequel to it.
Oh,
and I won't watch that either.
Supposed to be 20. I think it was supposed to be next year, but COVID and everything. So it's supposed to be now 2023 maybe. But they are supposedly making a direct sequel, eliminating Exorcist 2 and 3 and all of that, and retconning a direct sequel. So there's that for you.
Interesting.
Yeah, I won't be watching that one either. Like, that is a Brian thing. He'll have to come talk to y'all about that because it's not going to happen. Like, I just don't know. Like, and anything like Haunting in Connecticut was one of my favorite horror movies, and I absolutely love the actual documentary that it's based that the story was first told on before they made it into a movie. But because it involves a kid, it's that much more unsettling for me. I don't know if it's because I have children. I don't know if it's because I teach children, sometimes of the corn. And, like maybe that's the whole case. Like maybe it's a, I'd hate to,
Yeah, you have a direct connection to the kids. So when kids are either possessed or in trouble or whatever, you're going to have a direct reaction.
Most of my kids are possessed, but I teach 8th grade, I think you're all possessed. But, sometimes I think my own children are possessed.
They sure sometimes can act like it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have cats. I don't have children, but I have cats, and even they act possessed sometimes. Especially when they just get up and start running out of like no reason whatsoever.
I mean, the paranormal stuff is my first love, I think. And then of course, the really good vampire movies, like the good ones. Yeah. And then I love
No, hold on. We can't just let you gloss. We can't let you gloss over this. What are the good ones?
The good vampire movies?
Yes.
The ones that actually scare you, like
what are the good ones?
Okay. So I personally love I enjoy Lost Boys. I will always enjoy Lost Boys. But I very much enjoy Near Dark.
Okay.
And so it's a lot grittier of a take on, on vampire movies, but it's also about family. And it's about the family that you choose. Even though sometimes you hate them. Like you don't always see eye to eye, but I love Bill Paxton and I always will. And so I very much enjoy that whole, like, I don't know. I enjoy the way it's shot. I enjoy the dialogue. I enjoy that some of them are way scarier than others. Something about a man with long fingernails just freaks me the fuck out. I don't know why.
Yeah, I've never heard of that before. That's an 80s movie too. I've never even heard of that movie. So, okay, I'm going to have to check that out.
Now, I also I do love like the general stuff, but like okay, I have a problem. So so Fright Night.
Okay.
Like I love Fright Night, and I will always love Fright Night, but it's like that campy, fun, like 80s movie.
It's the 80s, yeah. 100%.
It's the way you remember horror as a kid. It's the thing that you love the most. And I'm really sad that Chris Sarandon never, got the time to shine the way he probably should have, because I think he could have been a great leading man, but he wasn't, and that sucks. But I think that traditional vampire, like that Van Helsing kind of vampire, and then when you take it another notch up and you ramp it up to the point of 30 Days a Night.
Oh, wow. Okay, yeah.
Because this movie scared the fuck out of me.
30 Days of Night, I like
going to Alaska.
I like it because this guy found and I'll tell you something else real quick after this. He found the concept. He found the ideal place for vampires to end up. It was a brilliant concept. I don't love the movie, but conceptually it's so good that I'm like, this all makes sense to me. So this is fine. And Josh Hartnett.
I don't love the dialogue.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's an okay movie. The
dialogue is not always good.
Yeah, there was
I love the music and I love the way it's shot.
So there was a comic book that came out from Image Comics. I think it was called Dark Fang. Basically, same ideas. Like you have to figure out where would the vampires go, right?
Yeah.
So this particular vampire figures out that since she's dead, She doesn't breathe oxygen or anything. So she goes underwater because it's always dark and there's no sun underwater. So she's a vampire living underwater. So I was like, oh, okay. That's again, conceptually, you've taken you've examined the tropes and you've figured out, okay, well, let's go here because this hasn't been done before. So very smart. I like smart, even if the execution isn't always perfect. Like I like the conceptualization of things, like, okay, this seems pretty good.
Yeah.
It was Night Fae.
How did you guys like? I know we probably talked a lot about this last year, but Haunting of Hill House. Did you guys like that when it came out?
I didn't. Honestly, I didn't finish it, and I forgot it existed. I think I got through the first. I don't know, what are there, 8 episodes? So maybe I got through 6. They're okay. Like they were shot really nicely. It was a good looking thing, but character wise and all of that, like just nothing made me come back. Even watching the 6 episodes, it was like, I don't know, 6 months to watch 6 episodes. I was like, oh yeah, this thing, let me watch this again. And then I'd skip it and come back to it. Oh yeah. And then the guys that made this new thing called Midnight Mass, which is on Netflix too. And I did 2 episodes and I was like, no, I'm out. These people are not for me. It's too slow. Their characters aren't working for me. So, and I just got into like an argument on Facebook today about me knowing what's not going to work for me. Like almost in an instant. Now, sometimes I'm wrong. And when I'm wrong, I admit it. Like Shang-Chi, I expected this to be a dumpster fire and I saw it and I was like, oh no, this is all right. Oh, I was 100% wrong. But more often than not, I can look at this and be like, I don't like that guy. I don't like this director. I don't like this writer. Something's wrong. And 9 times out of 10, I'm right. And as people started talking about Midnight Mass, I was like, oh no, I forgot. I didn't even finish their other show. So this is probably not going to work for me.
I enjoyed Midnight Mass. I thought it was pretty good, but I kind of got sucked in because it was about vampires. So it was a whole, like the whole thing.
I couldn't even tell you that there was vampires in that. Like, again, I only did 2 episodes and it had a reasonable cliffhanger for the 2nd episode with I'm just going to spoil it. She stands up, guys. The cripple girl stands up. So it's kind of like, oh, okay, something weird is happening there. But it wasn't enough to make me like fly back to it.
Yeah.
But I didn't know it was vampires until
I don't think anybody.
I think the 3rd.
Maybe if they told people it was vampires that they'd get.
Yeah, maybe more people. But I think there's that whole like understanding that there is no way for vampires to be in a situation with religion, and for some reason that crossing, people just didn't think about it. But I enjoyed
that?
it.
They vampires and religion are crossed forever because of the cross.
But he wore the cross. He had the cross. Like,
the dude is the vampire.
The priest.
Well, I didn't know that.
Sorry.
And we just spoiled the whole show right there. So sorry, guys. Sorry, guys. See, now instantly, you have my attention now, because now you're talking about like Silver Bullet, where the priest was the werewolf.
It was the slow. It is a slow burn. Like it really is.
And I get that.
It
but
is really slow.
If you have a thread to hold on to,
I
think you could get there. Like with Silver Bullet, it's just a 2-hour movie. So you're just, oh my God, he was the werewolf. In this case, like if you had a thread that told us something's going on with this guy. Now, obviously, if he made this girl, stand up, then something's going on. But I think if I had that thread, and now I'm more interested already. Now I'm immediately more interested and might finish the show. So marketing.
That's just good. Like if you're gonna completely ignore, a huge fan base, and not say, "Hey, there's vampires in here." Who are you marketing to?
I think sometimes we're too concerned with the big shock twist, right? And same with like Halloween, like we're gonna get this big shock twist at the end. Like, okay, but I don't have 6 hours to put in for a shock twist. Just take me there, So in this case with a TV show, if the twist is okay at the end, we find out or at some point we find out he's a vampire. you need to put that, and maybe I haven't seen the marketing, I don't know, but I have no concept that this dude was like a vampire. So market it to me so that I have something to hold on to while it's going through the slow burn, you know?
And Tom's gonna end up kicking
I know, right?
Brian's ass one of these days.
Guy's a hack.
Yeah.
So yeah, you literally, Nicole, in that like 30 seconds, you just like sold the show to me. And now I'm going to probably go back and check it out.
But the first 2 episodes you watched, there was that there was a transition. Like I don't think he even knew, because he came back home and he was, well, nobody knew who he was. Like,
interesting.
The guy, the Monsignor that left and went to wherever he went, Italy, came back as the new Monsignor,
right?
40 years younger. So nobody knew. He was a totally different person. He marketed himself as a different person. And
see, the beginning with like all the dead cats and stuff. I was like,
so you don't think
it's just like a monster movie. Happening. Like, what's going on?
And then there's that whole paranormal idea of it, is that she stood up. So there's something miraculous happening, which, okay. So, there's that mixing of him being able for a long time to touch the cross. And then I think it's in the 4th episode, he woke up.
The only one that knew who
it
was the doctor's mom. Because remember
she's on her like deathbed or whatever, and she knew him for 40 years, so she was like, and said his name, and he was like, oh shit. So yeah, but for a long time he was touching the crosses, he was involved in the things, and then all of a sudden he woke up one morning and the sun bothered him and it was burning him, and he had the cross in his hand and it burned him, and he was like, I think I'm having a crisis of faith, and like.
Yeah, see that's interesting. It's interesting. It's like Dracula. Was it Dracula 2000 where we find out that Dracula was Judas? I was like, that's freaking brilliant. Like all the aversion to silver and the cross. I'm like, oh my God, of course he's Judas. Of course he is. So yeah, no, I like those. I like those types of things. But again, I don't have 8 hours of my life to get me to a twist. Like that's why I like the movies far more than I like TV shows, is because a lot of the times these TV shows are so drawn out, even though their point is really maybe 2 episodes, a 3-hour movie, and then we're done. And I would much rather have that than have to, again, there's no rewatch value for me, when it's 8 episodes and the twist starts around number 4. Why am I watching the first 3 again? Like, makes it difficult. But when it's a movie, it's much easier to throw those twists in and be able to catch the audience while they're in the theater. Like, you got 2 hours with me in the dark.
Right. Yeah.
I'm going to give you a story. I'm going to throw some crazy stuff at you. Boom. Here's a surprise. Oh my God. You got all that in 2 hours.
I think that depends on what you are as a like a consumer too, because if you're essentially you're held hostage in the movie theater, you're not on your phone. You're not being involved in anything.
Looking at you millennials.
Yeah. I am not a millennial.
Not you, looking at the millennials out there.
Yeah.
Get off your phone.
Whatever. Nobody wants to talk to me until I'm on a show. Like, nobody gives a shit that I'm home. Then they all, can I have this? Can I have this? Can I do this? Can I have this? Can I go here? I'm like,
it's even like consuming, like I consume a lot of TV stuff. Like I'll watch episodes, but I will almost never watch a TV show a second time through unless it's something that really, really connected with me. Like generally speaking, I will run Battlestar Galactica once a year. I will like binge watch. Like it's one thing to watch an episode, but to like actually like watch a show. There's only a handful that I would watch regularly again and again, like as a binge watch. So even though there are only 8 episodes, a lot of this stuff just is such a slow burn that it's not interesting outside of that one big reveal. So yeah. That's kind of and that's all streaming services now, is they kind of all lean into that. Now when it's like comedies and stuff, then it's just comedies, like whatever.
Right.
But when it's built like these suspense and horror shows are built for Netflix and Hulu and whatever, they have a specific design. Like we know that we have to reveal only so much because we still have 5 episodes, 4 episodes, 3 episodes, whatever. So
I know Nicole has tried very hard to get me into Supernatural, but I'm sorry, I can't.
I will be honest. Like I've watched all 15 seasons. I watched the first 6 probably twice, and it was never a binge watch the second time.
Yeah.
It was always
just casual. Yeah.
Like if it was on, I'd watch that episode because I was like, oh, I remember that episode and I really liked that episode.
Yep.
But I watched all 15 seasons and I will forever be a fan, but the rewatchability as far as the entirety of the seasons, probably not. Like if it's on, I'll watch it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's more likely the first 5 seasons. It's not going to be the later seasons. Like I've been honest. Like I absolutely hate season 7. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, but the Leviathans, I want to punch him in the face. I'm like, this is dumb. And I really disliked it. And I didn't really enjoy the last season all that much. I mean, it had to come to fruition at some point. Like it had to happen, but I was just disappointed. I was disappointed. I mean, COVID.
I don't know how you can do 15. I mean, I don't know how you can even do like 10.
I know how you do 15 years of anything.
But more specifically, like
they love the character.
Yeah, I don't know how you end it to a point where the fans will ever really be like, "This was good." That's so rare to have a finale for a show that fans are like, "Whoa,
You're not going to please everyone."
Right.
Oh well, that's a given. That's certainly a given. But it's more often than not that you get sort of an unsatisfactory finale, and the longer your show goes, the more likely it is that you'll have a crappy finale because your fans have become so invested in it that it's like, wait, this can't be it. This can't be the last episode.
Well,
it can't be the last hour of this show that has been existing for half of my lifetime. And, and that's a serious thing. I mean, that's legit. I mean, I remember when the Big Bang Theory went off the air, I was in a hotel room on a Comic-Con, and I was like, I have to watch TV tonight. I cannot do anything else because I had to watch this final episode. And it even though I had all the Blu-rays and I could just watch it whenever I wanted to again, I could feel it. You're talking about 10 years of these characters and their voices in your head.
Yeah.
It's a very real thing when it goes away for good.
See, okay, did people not like the way MASH ended? Well, okay, let's be honest here. They didn't have the internet, so a lot of people's opinions were shouted out to the void.
And truthfully, if you're invested in something, we already know that the formula, if it goes past 5 years, it's probably not going to end well. Probably most people are going to drop off and it's going to get canceled anyways. So at the end of the day, and that's how I felt about Bones. And as soon as you take away that magic spark that makes the show work, as soon as you put the two characters that have sexual tension together, you're done. Like there's no story left to tell. It's happened with Castle. Well, Castle was different, but it did kind of happen.
Castle was like a whole different entity. Like, the show itself started to really suck after the 3rd season.
Yeah.
So let's be honest, it was gonna end regardless because Stana Katic and Nathan Fillion didn't get along with each other at all.
Yeah. Well, the one I'm most angry about though is the Glades. Like I am so pissed off about the Glades. Like, how the fuck do you put him in the fucking kitchen and then let that happen and then not tell us? Just give us something. Give us like a mini series or a special hour-long something. Give us something. Like I was pissed.
Yeah.
I'm still pissed. I'm bitter. Take my
Thank
TV
you
very
for bringing up the Glades because
Well,
yes,
see, and this brings us back to like kind of what we were talking about with these long franchises. Is you have to be doing something with them to make them relevant. They can't just exist. I mean, we've already seen that. We've seen the Friday the 13th remake and the Freddy remake, which audiences were like, "Yo, what is this?" The Friday the 13th one I thought was okay, except that it was basically just Friday the 13th 1 through 3 sort of mashed together.
Yeah.
So it didn't bring anything forward. And so when we get these reboots, there's nothing new to it. So the question becomes, is there anything new to do with it? Like, it's one thing to go back. Like, I made a post today. I was like, I shouted out to Malakakat. I was like, yo, just let me write comics of the old Thorn continuity for Halloween. Just let me do it in comic form. You do whatever you want for the movies. I'll do comics because I want that. Because at least when they were doing Thorn and all that stuff, there was a progression of story and it kept moving itself forward, even moving itself away from Laurie and Jamie and whatever. But all that stuff was so 80s and 90s, right? So the question, and now everything has to be real, right? Now everything has to be set in reality. It's like, oh, that wouldn't really happen. Well, who cares? Does that matter anymore that it wouldn't really happen? Whatever that even means. I mean, we're talking about horror anyway. So why aren't we just having fun with it and telling ridiculous stories versus trying to implant Michael Myers or whoever else into 2021 and its sensibilities? Screw that. Just tell fun, crazy stories with these ridiculous characters.
Yeah. Well, Brian, I really wish that you would sit with us so that you can tell us what kind of things that James Wan is doing.
Yeah, one I don't like everything that Wan does, but he's kind of in that realm a little bit, where he just kind of runs with it and just lets it be whatever it needs to be, which is good. But outside of The Conjuring, there's not really anything that's like a franchise element where you keep going with the story. And even with The Conjuring, all that stuff is based on, I can't think of their names. The Warrens. They're based on the Warren stories. So while there is continuity to it, it's still kind of based on, real life, whatever.
Very, very loosely based.
Loosely based on real life.
With that, because I mean the Amityville horror wouldn't exist if it wasn't for the story that came out from the Warrens about that place. And then their popularity. So, what would the Amityville horror be as popular if it wasn't for the Warrens writing that book?
I mean, I don't know enough about that time period. I know about the DeFeos and the Lutzes and that kind of thing, but I don't know enough about how that all went down in the real world, as far as the attraction to it. But back in the day, all of that stuff, anytime you had that kind of stuff, people were shocked and dismayed and like, what is going on? I mean, you're talking about the 70s here, the early 70s. So a lot of stuff is very moment in time. And stories are sometimes written for moments in time, periods of time, based on what the sort of the cultural awareness of things is. And I don't know how that necessarily translates to things like Michael and Freddie and Jason necessarily, other than we were coming out of Vietnam in the 70s. Like, I don't know if we just needed a different type of scare beyond nuclear war, you know, from the Cuban Missile Crisis in the 60s to war in Vietnam, which was crazy. I don't know if we just needed to be removed from reality for a period of time, and this let us do it. But if you look at even what James Wan is doing now, he's not doing anything that is Freddie, Michael, Jason-esque.
Yeah.
He does cool horror movies, but nothing is becoming franchisable to push a story forward. At least nothing that I am aware of, except for The Conjuring. So I don't know. It's always interesting to go back in time and sort of examine how and why things were made, especially when you're talking about things like the Warrens in their real life experiences.
I wonder if a lot of The Conjuring comes from it being a universe and things being connected. That people have seen how it worked for Marvel, and they enjoy having the continuity of all these things being related.
Certainly.
And so they're drawn in, that way. But I also think that there was a lot of, there was a book written, but if they hadn't written the book about the Amityville Horror, and the Warrens hadn't gone public with what they'd seen, it was a news article and that was it.
Well, yeah, and there was no internet at the time. So in order to books were the big, that'll get you out into the market, to the public awareness.
And the house got sold relatively soon after the Lutzes moved out. And so, and that family still maintains that nothing ever happened in that house.
Right. Yeah.
So
nothing ever since.
And nothing ever since. Right. Yeah. So now people have gone into the house and they've claimed that they've taken pictures of things and they've heard things and whatever, but they're all living on the shock value of everything.
Yeah. But the idea of something happened in that house is implanted in their head.
And truthfully, yes. And if you listen to anything that Ronnie DeFeo ever talked about, he was always baited by whoever was asking the questions. So you ask him who did it, he says his sister made him do it. And because his sister was, controlled by whatever or whatever. He had 100 reasons. And then it was something else. And then, he was baited by whoever he was interviewed with. So if you've ever watched anything where he's talking about it, he talks about how the house was haunted and it was that was his story. So he didn't go to jail because he was high. But then he was like, well, yeah, I did it, but my sister told me to do it because she was told by this dark thing and da-da-da. And so that just kind of fueled the fire, I think. Is the house haunted? Okay, well, I can't believe that the house is haunted if nothing's happened ever since. There are houses that
there
are
could
haunted.
be ghosts in there, but they just happen to like the current tenants. That's all. Like, okay, these guys are fine. Just fine.
Well, and not only that, it's like,
hey, they remodeled our house. We don't have eyeballs on the house anymore. It's all fine.
There is such thing as people themselves being haunted. So with the Lutzes moving out of that home, they took their ghosts with them.
But you would think that they would still have some sort of thing following them. And if you listen to the left, they're not talking anymore. They've not been interviewed. Nobody's talking to them. So there you go.
Which is funny because they were pretty talkative when the remake came out.
Well, yeah.
There was a documentary.
Relevant again.
There was a documentary not long ago that I think I'd have to look it up and find it, but I think it's called My Amityville Horror or something. And I believe that they were interviewed for that again. I haven't seen it because I'm too cheap to spend the $3.99 to rent it on Amazon. But yeah, there's been a whole lot of Amityville stuff. But that one was like some kind of documentary found footage thing, but it supposedly had some of the Lutz stuff in it. But yeah. And incidentally, the Amityville Horror series is one of the worst franchises in the history of horror franchises. Holy shit. is
That's
this
what
terrible?
makes me laugh is like the WILLOW'S doesn't have the rights to the original Amityville Horror, but any sequel that came out after they're getting royalties from.
Well, there's the Amityville Horror is interesting because you can't say Amityville Horror without paying Universal. I think it's Universal.
Yeah.
Because they own the Amityville Horror. But Amityville is a real place.
Yeah.
And there are plenty of Amityville whatevers that play on the area and just they don't even use the house in a lot of cases. So yeah, it's a very weird franchise.
I was trying to think of there was a documentary on Discovery. It's on Discovery Plus now, but I think it was on Discovery or Travel Channel or something. And they were talking about they were following around DeFeo. And there was like a series of interviews from the jailhouse or whatever. And he was really talking about the things that.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep.
And so but then 5 years later, he changed his whole story. So I don't know that he has a coherent thought in which makes everything that true believers in the supernatural or the paranormal kind of, we shrug at because we're like, then apparently you don't really know. Like,
I think the guy suffers from a personality disorder that makes him lie and believe a lot of his stories. So
I think he just did a lot of drugs and he doesn't have any brain cells left.
He's dead anyway.
And he's dead now. So anyways,
yes, he is dead. Yes.
I mean, it was what it was. And I think it probably wouldn't have been so interesting. Like, I mean, Ryan Reynolds, the remake took a lot of liberties, and I enjoy Ryan Reynolds pretty much in everything he plays in.
I liked him in that movie because of the fact that that's like the one movie where he actually was different.
He was very not Ryan Reynolds in that movie.
Yeah.
Oh yes, he was very. Holy crap! Yeah, he was, and yeah, and they added all kinds of stuff, took a lot of liberties. They had what's the Hit Girl was in that movie too. Chloe Grace Moretz was the little kid in that movie. Yeah. But again, it's if you look at the original Amityville Horror movie and you played that for somebody nowadays, they'd be like, I don't get it. Like there's flies on the window. Okay, whatever. But it's kind of like the Exorcist, where it's like this sort of existential dread that it creates. And if you're not in tune with that kind of stuff, potentially, sort of existing around you, it's not going to work. Unless it's a shark eating off your leg and it's like this direct effect, it's not going to affect you.
Welcome, John, to the conversation. Oh dear.
I think he might have frozen up.
Yeah, he froze.
Yep,
I'm sorry, but
he'll come back.
Yeah, he'll start moving again soon. So I have two then. Well, I have one that I have, and then one that I want to talk about because I want to hear somebody else's take. But I know that this is one of my favorite. This is one of my favorite movies on the planet. But this movie is very unsettling to watch and very weird. And I think it's because it's Dario. I think it's because it's Dario. But
okay.
I also very love witchcraft kind of crazy things. Now, I won't watch anything with a Ouija board, but I'm weird like that. But I found that movies that are shot in color and this kind of color are very unsettling because you don't expect it to be scary. You don't expect it to hit those notes. And that one kind of, it's not scary, really. It's more kind of just weird. And it's unsettling in places, but I enjoyed that movie too.
I'm going to have to look that movie up.
It's great cinema, even like outside of horror.
Yeah, and it gets a lot of people are drawn to it because it's good cinema, and Dario Argento is freaking amazing. But yeah, I think I just wanted to show it off.
John, welcome, and John Henderson.
Now he's back.
Thank you for joining us.
I was freezing up, and I had to reset my Wi-Fi. So.
Oh, that's okay.
Yeah.
Technology.
Yeah, I'm having troubles pointing out which is your favorite horror movie.
Oh, I don't know.
Hard telling. I don't know.
Sure. I think it might be Chud.
Okay, who does the artwork in behind you?
That's Scott Straka. I'll go to the group. I show his work all the time, and I got a bunch of originals. Like I got some down here, and I got some upstairs. And those are a little more, but he gives out great deals.
I'm loving that Crypt Keeper behind you. That is amazing work.
I own the original one. I just got the original one, and I definitely want to get that autographed. The original one's upstairs in my office area.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it's really cool. But even the 11x14s, it's hard to tell the originals from the prints because the only way you can really tell is you flip them over. But yeah, Scott Strack is the man. You can get those. He runs sales for like $5 $5.
Oh wow!
For those prints, and they're amazing. They're amazing.
We have about 50 prints that are not hanging on the wall right now.
Oh, I got.
Well, nothing's hanging on the wall right now because we still haven't really moved in.
The original Leprechaun.
That detail is amazing.
Yeah.
Then I got an original one I like, The Walking Dead. Data.
Okay, yeah.
Original Godzilla.
Okay.
Yeah.
You can tell.
Man.
You probably can't see it peeks through.
Yeah.
And if you got Godzilla, you gotta have the original Kong.
Oh, fantastic.
And then one of my favorite, I'd call it more sci-fi than horror, but definitely has horror element.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
Yeah, the Donnie Darko is one of my favorite movies. And then I got this one signed. I own the original. The original one's
okay.
over the shoulder of that tall Myers there. I got a bunch of them. Of course, part 3.
Yeah.
Which it's his birthday today. Happy birthday, Halloween part 3. You gotta have Bob.
Nice.
It's funny. I told Bob to give me a beer when I saw him at the convention. And then here's some non-horror, which is shocking for me. Although it's kind of horror.
Oh, that's cool, though.
That's Butcher.
You got to say my name.
Billy Butcher. Oh, yeah.
Oh, nice. Wow.
The Metal Clown. I can't think of his name right now. But
all right. So, here's something. Like it's not too much horror, but Rob Zombie's connected to it. What do you guys? How are you guys feeling about the remake of the Munsters? No, not happening.
No, I'm not going anywhere near it.
I'm disappointed that Lily is being played by his wife.
Are you surprised as soon as it was announced?
I'm not surprised, but I'm disappointed that I don't. I just feel like the character deserved a little bit more, and she's not going to bring anything to it. And honestly, I mean, I don't want to say it's doomed because I love the Munsters, but how do you replace the original Herman? Like
it's like we were talking about remaking these things, right? It's like
that you can't replace them.
Who are you making this for? Is like really the question. Like, was there some crowd out there going like, "Hey, we need more Munsters," and if not, then what is this? Who is this for? Like, who are the Munsters relevant to, or who are you trying to make them relevant to? So it's a very weird choice to me for him to be doing this.
How many remakes of the Addams Family? And for like each generation it came out for it, it looked like it was a hit, but the cartoons, I don't know. I don't know if I really like the cartoons when they came out.
Well, in cartoons
Like
versus cartoons versus like live action is a little bit different. Because forever Wednesday Addams is from the movies. Forever those characters for us, for our generation, like we all know the TV show, but like those two movies are so ingrained in pop culture that when you turn them into cartoons, it's kind of like, okay, let them be cartoons, but we know who the real Addams family is.
The Addams family, though, they were cartoons. It was a comic strip before it was a TV show. So the look of all of them in the cartoon versions actually more to the original than the TV show was.
Right.
So you got to remember that. The Munsters is a different story, though. I like Rob Zombie. I actually like the cast that's in there. I don't have any hatred except for a certain wife of a certain director, writer. But we talked about this, I think, a little bit before, Willow and Nicole. And you know my feelings on this. You don't replace Fred Gwynn, period. Even Yvonne Yvette, Butch, all of them. Well, you could always replace the niece. They did that a couple of times, but you just don't replace Herman, Lily. You just can't. You just can't, especially Herman. There's something
part of what makes them want to remake it is that it is part of our lives. Maybe not directly, but I remember watching reruns as a family on TV, like when I was a kid. So it was important, like that's what made it important to me. So sure, he wants to remake it because probably us, that's like throwback to our our youth.
Nostalgia thing,
It's nostalgia, and we want to get more people involved. But I'm not sold, and I mean I understand people that are, and I'm fine with that. You can like what you like, and I'm not gonna yuck on your yum. If you like it, go for it. But it's not gonna. I don't know. Like I'm
gonna go into it like I looked at Rob Zombie's Halloween, and I was able to enjoy it this way. It's not the Munsters. It's not Halloween. It's not really that Michael Myers. So I'm gonna try to go in with my bar set pretty low because I do like either with Rob Zombie, you either like him or you hate him. I found that there's no in between with that.
Yeah.
You either like his style or you don't. I don't mind it. I don't mind what they call gore porn because he's gory with all he does. I have no problem with that. I'm just not going to look at it as it's going to be even remotely like the Munsters TV show or the characters in the Munsters TV show. It's just not. You know what his wife's going to bring to the table. You know what a lot of these actors are going to bring to the table. And nothing against the actors, but you're asking them to play well, I guess it'll test their range, but from what I understand, it's going to probably be a hard R, knowing Rob Zombie. I don't see it being a PG movie where it's, set in, a lot of what the Munsters was I love the black and white. I'll give Rob Zombie credit. It looks like from the photo, he's going black and white. So I'll give him, even when they did the movies for the Munsters, when they brought in the color, it just didn't feel right. That show was built black and white. So I'll give him credit visually for going that direction. The direction story-wise that he goes, I'm very reserved on it. I don't think he's doing it for the fans, because if he was doing it for the fans, I think most fans would say, you know what, I love your horror, but can't we pick a different, something else other than the Munsters? I just don't think it's just going to be worse. It's going to be a worse, well, maybe not because it's older, but I don't see the response to it from the fans who are going to go in as Munster fans. It'd be people where you don't need it to be the Munsters. It's almost like I'm taking the name Munsters, and this is what the story is going to be to fit, to make money off the name. I just don't see it being. Maybe there'll be Easter eggs and this and that, and there's some cool things they can do, but I just don't see it having the original vibe. And you can't replace the actors, and you can't. The style doesn't fit a lot of the younger generation now. So either way, it's going to be an original twist. You got to look at it that way. Don't go in expecting anything but a Rob Zombie movie.
The Munsters was really more of a comedy, if you really get technical.
It was a family sitcom. It just happened. It was a normal family.
I mean, they were a normal family. They were just monsters. But the point, I think, is that it's nostalgia for us, and he is hoping to revive something probably with this younger generation of kids who are less.
They have no idea what it is. This is all this is, and this may be a pet project for him. Like he may legitimately be like, "Hey, I want to do the Munsters," but ultimately, this is a brand awareness project to be like, "Hey, remember the Munsters?" And then maybe it will generate something else. Like, "Hey, now we can turn it into a cartoon like the Addams Family," and whatever. It's just a brand awareness project, even if it's a pet project that Zombie really wants to do. And I think that's. There's a lot of those types of things. That's why you see all kinds of reboots and retcons of really bizarre things that you're like, why is this being remade? Well, because brand awareness, and they need to sell a toy somehow, and their licensing and this and that.
Exactly. And I think it's whoever gets the licensing and whoever makes the movie of this franchise gets the rights to it, and which it sucks because Dick Tracy should have another movie out, but
too late.
I know, it's gonna be a long fight for that.
I think that goes back to everything that we always say about, like how many times do we have to see the same thing? I was like, well, Batman is always. Yeah, there's never anything new. Like there's always the origin story. There's always this there's nothing new. Yeah. And so you just get less interested in watching it instead of seeing all these new characters that DC or this catalog of characters that DC's got. So, I mean, like, are you going to take a chance on something that's a little less known or something that's completely new and make it your own? I think that's probably what the Conjuring did, was that it was able to take this family, because the Warrens had a kid, and make it a story that they could tell and then bridge out into a universe of crazy shit and then, essentially sell that way. But everything else, there's not a lot of new. And I don't think that some things you can remake. Like, tell me one remake that was better than the original. I can tell you one remake that I thought was equally.
Well, it's rare to be better than the original, but that's not always the point. The point is usually more make it relevant for a modern audience, whatever this modern period is, so that they latch onto it. And then again, hopefully it can extend the brand's life, because if something exists only in one period, let's say the 50s or the 60s, and now we're in 2021, that brand becomes less and less of use to whoever owns it. The value decreases. So they have to do something with it as you go forward. But when you're remaking stuff that's only maybe 20 years old, that's where, I mean, everybody who saw that stuff when they were kids, they're all still alive. They have the DVDs and the Blu-rays and the VHS, and they're like, yo, I'm still watching this. I don't need a remake. But when you go back super far, then you're starting to dip into things that the modern audience doesn't really have a clue. And most people that are going to be into this kind of stuff now, what is the Munsters exactly? I don't know what this is. It's not really on TV. It's not on TBS or TNT like it used to be. So the Munsters is one of these brands that's like sort of about to fall off the cliff because what's being done with it. So here's a little brand awareness project to, potentially spark some interest.
I like Brian's question here. Which distribution studio released the best horror, Arrow or Scream Factory?
I have very little Arrow knowledge. I have gotten a bunch of Scream Factory stuff, and I love that stuff.
The same line.
I just picked up the Omen box set that just came out, and I haven't watched it, but I'm dying to get into it. So for me, I from a presentation standpoint, Arrow is way behind because I've seen their stuff and it's very basic presentation. At least the stuff that I've seen. But every time Scream does something, it's usually pretty like elaborate and like, woo, let's do some cool stuff. So I would just lean into Scream Factory just from what I've seen.
Yeah,
I'm with you.
tells me we should
Pretty
buy
much
it.
everything you said, I'm with you on. So, yeah, 100% on that one. And then the other thing is, Rob Zombie is a fan of the Munsters. He obviously is, because he has a song named Dracula.
Yeah.
But it's what's his vision? How's that going to transition to the audience or general audience? Because
right,
it's like Tom was saying. I mean, who's he going to reach with this fan base? Most people that know the Munsters are going to have these expectations, and the ones I think they're trying to introduce it to the younger generation that might not know about the Munsters because they're not on TV anymore. I don't know why. I don't know why they don't show it on TV. I haven't seen it in a long time now. We're talking about it. So it does need to, people do need to see it, but reruns of that show is fine. That show wasn't even on long. I think it was only on for 2 seasons, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It's like Gilligan's Island. It was surprisingly only on for like 2 seasons.
I think the popularity came about in the 90s when Rob Zombie did Dragula and his little thing with Twisted Metal.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he has the ability to introduce the Munsters into a new audience, but I mean,
hopefully he does it successfully, but I don't know if that's going to translate.
Yeah, I don't either. I mean, generally speaking, like you said, you either love him or you hate him, and basically anybody that loves him loves anything that he does. So all the Rob Zombie fans will go see the Munsters. It's just really a question of, will anyone else go see it? And that's the big question. See,
I'll go and check it out to see what he did with it, but I'm a fan of the Munsters. My aunt and my mom showed me old episodes, and you know, I married into the car lifestyle where, you know, my husband and his dad restores old vehicles, and if I could get my hands on the Munster coach ever, that thing, I'm just gonna have a ball driving that thing.
That's
because
cool. That's cool.
once I hold myself together long enough to not cry.
I think they'll do all right. They just got to make the car cool. Willow will be happy. Just make that a badass Dracula.
So with that being said, though, then what do you think about the Candyman? So the change from, you know, what year did it come out? 1990 to now.
I can honestly say I didn't see the new one yet, Candyman.
I saw it.
I heard it was.
I was bored. And I didn't know a lot. Here's the thing. I went in with a clean slate because I'd never really seen Candyman, the early series. I knew kind of what it was, but I'd never really seen him. So I went in with a completely clean slate, and nothing about it was like, wow, okay. Like, it was getting a lot of like a lot of good comments on like the directorial stuff, the cinematography, whatever else. There was a couple of really cool scenes, a couple of really interesting like looks on the city and whatever. But the rest of it just kind of, it felt like an artsy film, like almost like a horror film made for Ken. And I'm like, yeah, this is not working for me. So for me, it was a no. It was just not. It was nothing. It was nothing to me.
The original was sort of an artsy, in its own way, film, but it fit the time. It fit the way they did it. I can't comment on the new film, but I was a big Candyman fan. But it's like any other sequels. It just gets they're not sure where they're going with the character. Where they had a great idea in the original one, and they wrote it really well, and the connection in that movie, because anybody who hasn't seen it, I don't want to totally ruin it, was really good. It had its moments, and it kind of had you thinking at times what's going on and what's really happening in between these scenes. And I loved the original Candyman. It was one of my favorite horrors back in the day. I loved a lot in the 80s, a lot. 80s was my time. 90s, we kind of got, it started getting like Bride of Chucky, and at the time experienced it. I don't know how old, but I'm 45. So like 90s, I was in high school. The horror genre was made for but it was made for like 12 to 15 to 16-year-old kids. I fit the horror years in the 80s perfectly. Because even though Halloween's 78, it still felt like an 80s movie in its own way. It was definitely the start to the 80s movies.
Well, and it was on TV all the time. So, you know.
Yeah, like I grew up, I was born in 82. So I got to experience the majority of the 80s and 90s. And then when Friday the 13th came out as a TV show, and Nightmare on Elm Street came out as a TV show. I used to watch that stuff all the time.
I actually like the TV series, but that's another one that they just slapped Friday the 13th and slapped Nightmare on Elm Street on. But they were actually, I enjoyed the series. It had almost a Twilight Zone type vibe to it.
Well, it was Warehouse 13 before Warehouse 13 existed.
Yeah, it was really, I liked the little storylines. It was almost Season of the Witch, just something different.
And here's a weird little piece of trivia. It came out the same year as Star Trek: The Next Generation.
Really? I remember, I still think Star Trek Generation is new. And then you see Picard, and you know, he still looks a lot the same, but man, it's been some years. My father and mother were big especially my dad, Star Trek fans. Actually, I work with special needs, and one of my guys is a huge Trekkie. So I've been watching, last 5 years with him since I've been watching him. It's the one way I can get him out of his room, come put on. And right now it's Star Trek Enterprise. I think I've watched that series through about 5 times now. I didn't realize that series ran as long as it did. I enjoyed it though. I did like Enterprise. The ending was a little disappointing, but I liked I enjoyed it. It was a good series. I don't know. You guys are more Trekkies than me. I've seen you guys talk.
Me and my husband, we spent a good chunk of the summer last year rewatching Voyager, and I became like, I wasn't so much of a fan of Voyager at first, but now it's like I have a whole new appreciation for that show.
I think it depends on when you watch it though too. Like, can you, when it comes out and it's the new thing, it's the awesome thing, and you want to watch it, do you understand it really the way it should be watched? Like, I didn't have the kind of appreciation for, like, okay, when Friends came out, I was like 15. So I didn't have a clue about what it was like to be a 20, 30 something, you know, living on your own. I didn't have a clue about it. But when you watch it later on and you're like, oh yeah. So like, I kind of know people that are like that. So I think it depends on when you watch it, but it also depends on when it's being done. Like the 90s, I think, like, I was watching, you know, pretty much everything in the 90s. So when early 90s stuff would come out, like Candyman and People Under the Stairs and things like that, because People Under the Stairs came out when I was 11.
That movie was like
it scared the shit out of me.
Yeah.
But I was 11. So in my head, I'm like, I knew friends that were foster kids. And I was like, what would happen if somebody, like, what would happen if they just kept trying to get foster kids and they just kept shoving them in the wall in the basement? And I'm like, ugh.
But you hear horror stories all the time, especially from, like, when you grow up in foster care like I did. There was horror stories like nonstop where it was just it was just like people telling you, oh yeah, just be careful. Some parents just do it for the money, and you know, just are really abusive. And I mean, I've been through that. Yeah, I've been through the abuse. But yeah, just having a movie come out that you relate to way too much.
Yeah. Well, and then on top of that, there was the whole, like, the way race was portrayed in the movie too, because like there was a whole that whole time period, like the early 90s was that whole like weird time period with race. And so it was like a horror movie meets Boys in the Hood. It was really weird.
Yeah.
But I think that if they remade it now, it would have to be different. And I think maybe that's why the Candyman had to be different.
They did remake the People Under the Stairs. No, not yet.
They're talking about it.
Okay,
like it's a talking point.
Oh, I'm sure that basically every horror movie is being talked about. Even The Howling is supposedly becoming a Netflix show, and God help those guys, because there has been nobody on the planet that's been able to touch this franchise since the first movie and turn it into anything of any value.
Yeah.
So good luck, guys. If you need some help,
yeah,
I got ideas for you. I'm ready to help. It's funny because there was a long time ago, I wanted to pitch to do Howling comic books. And I actually hunted down Gary Brandner, who is the writer of the original 3 books. And I actually took this guy to lunch. It's one of my high points of my life, is I took Gary Brandner to lunch to talk The Howling and how to pitch and everything. And he got me in touch with Joel Kasselberg, who at the time owned the rights, and he was in the process of making a movie, which was The Howling Rebirth or Reborn or whatever the last one was. I'll keep some of the conversation between he and I, but bottom line was, he was like, yeah, we're making another one. And he was like, do you want to see the script? Tell me what you think. I said, yeah. So he sent me the script for this movie, which was going to be like a really super prequel type of werewolf movie, like in the Middle Ages. And I was like, well, okay, that's cool, I guess, except that you're falling into the exact same problem that every other Howling sequel has had, is that there's no continuity. There's nothing here that makes it The Howling, right? And so I shot him this idea. I was like, look, here's how you fix your problem. Connect it to the fans, connect it to what people know and like, and set yourself for the franchise up in the future. So at the end of the movie, basically this girl's going down she's in a boat, she's going down a little river, and she goes down past a castle, and it's the end of the movie. It doesn't matter. The rest of it doesn't matter. It's just a werewolf story. It's irrelevant. But what I said was, as you go down past the castle, put something on the side of the castle. Like sometimes they'll have like Wayne Manor, right? It says Wayne Manor. So put something on the side of the castle that says Quist Manor. And Quist is the name of the family from the original Howling, Eddie Quist. Okay. and immediately you've connected it to what people know and people love. And you can now take the Quist name, because Freddy, Jason, Michael, Chucky, all these things have one thing in common. They have a continuity character throughout all of them. The Howling doesn't. But that way you create it, and you can now run with the Quist family, and it connects to everything. He said, that's the smartest thing I've had anybody tell me, and I can't do it. I said, why not? He says, because MGM has the rights still to the original movie. He had the rights to the book. They still have the rights to the original movie. And the Quists are in the movie. I said, yeah, but the Quists are in the book. He says, yeah, but if we were to do it and MGM were to sue us, they could hold us up in court long enough for my rights to expire, and I wouldn't be able to make my movie.
That's the reference of the name? Wow.
Yeah. So I was like, well, partner, I can't help you then. This is a shitty movie. Don't make it. Because no one's going to care. And ultimately it was never made, and the rights were going to revert back to Gary, but he passed away, and they're now owned by another studio who did put out a Howling comic book, by the way, and no one should ever read it. No one should ever read it.
That's the problem, is you get people that don't understand what it's about, especially when you're going hot. That's why I love indie stuff, and I've been supporting a lot of that lately, is because you're going to get the same copy and paste, because it's got to make so much. There's so much money going into it that there's no creativity unless you go to an Indiegogo. Where if you have a great Howling sequel, direct sequel to the first one, write the script. There's enough people out there. Try to get crowdfunding going for it. Come up with the teaser trailer. A lot of people are doing that. Indie's the way to go, especially for horror fans. And that's one of the things I try to do, like as far as Doomsday's Crypt, is promoting all talented people in horror, all the horror fans. and let's make these good movies. To make a good horror doesn't take a huge budget. It takes people who can do practical effects, take somebody who can write a story, take somebody who can do the sound, and you build a good team with it. That's basically what I've been trying to do. And you get that team together that can do it, and you get the horror fans support, and they get an idea. And there's others that are doing it. Haddonfield Nightmares coming out, a direct sequel to H2O. My buddy Steve Merlo is doing a prequel to Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the Sawyer Massacre. My friend Michelle, she's doing the Third Channel, which is a sequel to Halloween 3. And these are coming from the fans. So that's why I try to support all of it. Even the Stream, which has the Terrifier cast 1 and 2. There's another movie called Stream, and they're stacked with a cast, and they're doing an Indiegogo. So it's for the horror fans. That's their big pitch that they're doing. So yeah, these Indiegogos are the way to go. If not, you're just going to get the same thing over and over again. And personally, I feel like Hollywood's its own worst enemies, especially with everything streaming now and whatnot. People are getting sick of it. Nobody wants. Marvel had a great run, but it's going to need a little break. I know they're doing the second phase, and the Spider-Man might be cool because what are they doing? They're bringing back old cast to kind of just throw excitement. It worked with the Spider-Man movie. That was the cartoon movie. Which one? I can't remember. The Spider-Verse.
Spider-Verse.
And they see that now. Is it going to be written well? Are the people going to really understand the characters? Is the big problem. You're talking Hollywood. Well, it worked here, so let's try to use it here. I am Iron Man. I am the Jedi. It just they copy and paste so much with it. They really need talented writers, and that's why I love seeing these smaller projects. And I want to see more fans, even if it's donating $5-10. Most of the movies come on YouTube. Mm-hmm. You're supporting somebody that, hey, hopefully they give you at least $10 worth, and it raises money. And the actual fans can start making these movies if Hollywood don't want to do it.
Well, I mean, right now his soul belongs to Disney, but I mean, Feige, like,
and he's not going to leave Disney. They're paying him way too much. Well, you're talking for Marvel. He's not going. I don't really. Yeah, I'm not a big fan. I thought you were going to say what's his name from the Star Wars cartoons.
Well, Star Wars and Marvel.
Well, I was thinking of the other guy.
Favreau.
Favreau and who's the other one? Dave. I can't think of his name.
Filoni. Dave Filoni.
Yeah, he's been great for it, but they let other people write it, and they let other people dictate what a good Star Wars. They don't have people that understand it, and the ones they do, they throw to the back burner.
Yeah. Well, and I feel like when a universe gets so big, it's hard to. You can't make everybody happy.
I just don't understand why Hollywood doesn't hire some of these people that are, say, a super fan and get some info from the super fans that understand.
It's the same reason that legislators don't ask teachers about education policy. That would make sense.
Yeah, it doesn't. It just doesn't make any sense. Especially like if you're going to spend billions of dollars buying Star Wars, get a couple fans that know and understand Star Wars.
I've been saying that for years. Yeah.
And I'm just using that as an example. You could do it with pretty much any reboot. Most, not all. There's some good ones that have been decent reboots, but you don't understand what the character is. You just go, okay, the guy's burnt. Parents killed him. Write the story. Tack him in the nightmares. They don't really understand what they're doing. And then they'll watch the movie once, but they're not even fans of it. They just know it's going to be money and go, oh, this scene was popular. Let's throw it in here, wherever. And it doesn't work the same because you're just throwing it in there. And you're not setting it up where it actually works. I don't know. I just find that a lot. And it doesn't mean I don't enjoy films and some stuff that comes out, but a vast majority of it, I have trouble watching. Yeah, I'll try. I'll want to watch it. It's just
it's like getting people who don't read Stephen King stuff to make a movie, and then they're like, hey, let's throw this in, let's throw that in, and it's like, and you're taking away everything that Stephen King wrote.
Well, the problem is with Hollywood is they have a really big problem, and whenever there's source material, right? Whenever there's let's just use the comics as an example, right? Whenever there's source material, you have an audience for that source material. Mm-hmm. However, when you make a movie, the audience for that movie is potentially 10 times the size as whoever read the source material. Yep. So, are you making a movie for the 10 times people who are going to go see that movie 4 or 5 times in the theater, or are you making it for the source material only people? And that's where it gets really, really tricky. And I don't envy any of these guys. And I think ultimately, as much as I feel like the Marvel movies have really flattened out over the last couple of years prior to COVID, I think they've done a really good job as far as finding the mix between source and the other 100 million people that don't read comics.
I don't read the comics. I didn't read the comic until I was actually older, and it's more adult comics, themed comics, not superhero and stuff. Yeah. I think I owned one, but for me, some of the stories, it's like, oh man, that'd be terrible, but people love it. It's like I wouldn't be a fan of it on a movie, so I get where you're coming from, because I'll admit I'm a casual on comics. I've never read like the whole Hulk series or.
Yeah, they say I grew up with comics. It was what I did. It's what I do. I'm a comic book writer now. But for me, I don't want, like, people are like, oh, Winter Soldier was so great. I'm like, I've been here before. Like, I've done this story in the comics. I don't want adaptions of what I've already seen, even though it wasn't an exact adaptation. Civil War was not an exact adaptation of Civil War in the comics and so on. But for me, I'm watching these movies and I'm like, I've already been here, man. I don't want to. This isn't what I want as a consumer. So that's one of the reasons why a lot of the Marvel stuff for me just kind of falls flat, because it's like, I've already been here. I don't care about the source material. I want something I haven't seen before.
But you understand that they got to introduce it to people who don't know as much as you. So you got to find that balance.
But I think that's how the MCU kind of worked out, though, because they tapped into some of these other characters that people didn't know as well. Like,
in some cases, yeah, like Guardians of the Galaxy was a complete whirlwind of, it has nothing to do with the comics, like zero. James Gunn had zero Guardians of the Galaxy in his movie, which is fine. I mean, he made a thing out of nothing. He's got a freaking raccoon in a tree. I mean, congratulations, you did something unique. So yeah, no, there are definitely exceptions to the rule for sure. But as far as their big events, the Infinity War and all this kind of stuff, it's like, I've been here before. It's interesting to see it on the screen. Like, it's a cool visual thing. But from a story standpoint, it's like, okay. Even though it's not the same ending, and we won't spoil Endgame for anybody. It's not the same ending as the comics. It's still kind of, I just gave you 6 hours of my life for a story that I kind of already knew. And so that's why the Marvel stuff kind of falls flat for me. Same with like what we just talked about with this Halloween reboot. It's like, I've been here before. Like, all of these story beats, I've been here before. I need something new here to give me a reason to come back for your final 2 hours. Even though I'll be there just because I'm a fan of the thing. But it's not like the old days where I'd be like, I'm going to see this 4 or 5 times. No, you got me once, and you'll get me one more time, and hopefully you'll finish strong. But when you're talking about these franchises that are decades old, you got to bring some fresh stuff.
I probably think that's why I watched the Scream trailer for the one that's coming out, and there's a lot of nostalgia for this, because that was my introduction. Okay, that's my introduction to horror. And there was something about the story that I liked in the original. Like, the Scream is still one of my very most favorite slasher movies of all time. Like,
sure.
And I granted, like, that was my birth into horror. But like, I appreciate the notes that it takes from the original, but also in a way trying to make it relevant, because it ties into a lot of what I see now. It's like, so they talk about how, these kids don't understand, like the whole thing was, you don't understand what this was like. And because it's 25 years later, there's a whole generation of kids that have no clue. It's like it is an urban legend now, for them. And so it's kind of interesting to see how it's gonna pan out. Like, I wasn't a huge fan of the other, like the sequels. I enjoyed them, because it was in the vein, but the new one kind of feels like it might.
It's more like it feels like the first one.
It feels like the first one, but there's a little bit of breath into it with a little bit of, please understand that kids don't understand what it was like. And I think that builds into the nostalgia for us as 90s kids, where we were in high school in the 90s and we were trying really hard to figure out who we were in the 90s. And so we hold the 90s very close to our chest and to our hearts, and we want our kids to understand it, and they don't have a fucking clue. And so we want to reinvent it for them. And I kind of dig it. Like, I like it, but I want to also see Matthew Lillard renew his character because he's not.
I just think they showed too much in that trailer. I could name it looked like there was at least 5 deaths that were pretty sure coming up right there in that movie. I felt like it was kind of like the fire scene with Halloween Kills. I wish I never saw that before. They gave way.
Well, in reality, that's really all there is to show, because nothing else happens in that movie. That's the big moment, and it's a great moment. But then it's just like the rest of the time, it's like, well, okay.
Well, anytime James Jude Courtney's in the movie, I thought he did an amazing job. The rest of the story, it wasn't. See, I'm torn on that movie. We talked about it the other day. Like, there were things that I get why people give it like a 2 and hated the movie and thought it was terrible, because there is some really not great stuff in the movie, but certain aspects of it, as some of the kills and stuff and some of the looks and visuals, I gave it like a 7.5, 8. I
think if you're gonna
watch it for the kills, but
yeah, I think if you ranked it 2 ways, like how did it look? Fucking awesome. How was the story? Fucking terrible. Like that's a legitimate, thing. And movies can be like that. You can have an awesome visual and have a garbage story. I mean, that's doable. And then the question is, do the visuals carry you through the bad story? And if they do, oftentimes you'll come out and you'll have a decent experience. So yeah, no, I totally get why people like it, and I get why people hate it.
I think with the deleted footage they have, there'll be somebody out there that could properly edit that movie. I think that was a big problem too.
Can they dub the whole thing so they never say "Evil Dies Tonight"? Like they say that one time, maybe just one time.
I want that drinking game.
You could have it instead of "Evil Dies Tonight." You could add words in "Popeyes tonight."
Yeah, right.
Pizza Hut.
Now, I kind of shook my head about this because how many more times are we going to live through a remake of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre?
This is a weird franchise for me because I've seen the original very just randomly. I don't even remember where, when, or how, but I remember seeing it. And I remember the Jessica Biel. I remember the Jessica Biel remake, which I liked a lot, but I really had no Texas Chainsaw Massacre context before I saw that one. So for me, it was just clean slate. Like I'm just going into a movie. So I was like, oh, holy crap. This is kind of freaky and creepy. And I kind of liked it, but that's it. I haven't seen anything else. Like I know McConaughey was in like Chainsaw 3 or something. So there's like this weird franchise in the 80s for Chainsaw Massacre. And then there's all kinds of weird starts and stops of reboots. So
Part 2, and I don't hate Part 2, is a very different movie than the original. In its own way. I liked both. I didn't like either one initially, but I grew to like them more over time. Some of the sequels, I get lost with them. Leatherface. But I do like the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre. That's why I'm on board with my buddy who's doing the prequel, which is more like set back some years where it's not always for. I know they already did the beginning or the prequel one, but it was terrible. It was awful. That movie was unwatchable.
It didn't make any sense. It was bizarre.
No, it was awful. It was awful.
Yeah.
It was so bad.
I'm a I'm more prone to the stuff that you don't see. Like blood and guts is fine. Like, yeah, sure. But I like the stuff that you don't see. Like,
it can be
I
scary.
don't have to see the meat hook go into her back to know what's happening because I see it on her face. And that to me is scarier than seeing it puncture flesh. Like,
and that's what Halloween 78 did. I mean, that was really the start of the slasher, but it didn't use any blood and guts or gore in that movie.
Yeah, even when things were like going into people, it was very black, very dark. You didn't really, it was not. It wasn't Friday the 13th with arrows flying through your neck.
It was like you weren't seeing it happen, like you were kind of saying, but also it was there where it had that extra, like it was your thought. The shape was kind of
it became a cerebral thing instead of
and this is a perfect thing. Think about that. Think about 78, and then think about Halloween Kills, where he had that guy over the butcher block, and he just kept hitting him. Like it's a perfect, like this is how Carpenter did it, where everything was sort of, you had to imagine it's happening, you had to listen to it happening, versus Halloween Kills, you just watch him stab this guy like 20 times. Like this is the scene. We're just going to keep watching this over and over again. And
knife, man, give him a break.
and there are two audiences for that. Like it's like Jaws. Like if you show a kid Jaws today, he's going to be bored out of his mind. Because he's used to seeing things like Deep Blue Sea where the sharks are swimming around and, you can see it happening. So, like you were talking about, Nicole, it's like when you see it, how you see it, like what age, what era, all of this stuff matters. But you can really see the I don't know, the growth, the evolution of whatever of film, just like through Halloween, 78 to now, it's subtle and sort of scary, and then it's brutal and in your face, and they're completely different movies, except they're the same movie.
Well, I think kids lose their imagination because they basically have a tablet in front of them and they can watch almost everything.
Yeah.
Where when I was younger, and even when you were younger in the 90s, and we had cell phones barely, but it was cost an arm and a leg to have it. So
I had a cell phone when I was 21.
Payphone.
I'm only 4 years younger than you. So at the end of the day, like it does hit you different in a different time period too. Like I saw Tobe Hooper's Texas Chainsaw later in life, and I'm still kind of like totally disgusted, by the hook, and I'm disgusted by the blood across the sheet. But you never saw any of that. But it's still the same really cool things that kill you about like Psycho, when you see the blood go around the drain. It's those like stark contrasts, those bits of music. It's the feel, but it's the same as me trying to explain to my kids why Telltale Heart is still amazing horror, and why Captain Amontillado should be read. And these things are timeless, but it's because they've been so desensitized to this brutal, in your face gore. They can't do anything. They don't think about it. Like I have to listen to these kids say, well, there was a school shooter, I would do this, this, and this. And I'm like, no, you wouldn't. You'd be hiding in a fucking cupboard somewhere because you're a pansy ass. Like you couldn't possibly understand. Like I would let that happen.
So different. They're just so different, especially now. And now with technology, and like I said, a kid's got technology in their hands. Like me at 12 years old or something. Yeah, there was my friend's dad would have a Playboy magazine or something. He was at work. We'd go and look at it or something, or if he had a couple of those. But the internet now, these 12-year-olds, they're numb to it, I'm sure, because they see it all the time. It's at their fingertips. I mean, how can you believe in anything or have any sort of fantasy when you know everything you see nowadays? It was limited. I mean, when I was a kid, there was only so many channels you could really watch. You had HBO Cinemax. What was it? There was only a few.
Yeah, back in the day, it was like, you got into October and suddenly you'd have like movie of the week, and it would be Halloween, and it would be The Howling, and it would be, and you got them one time a year.
Series that they have, like the It miniseries, and just any V miniseries. Somebody just brought up V today.
Yep.
And I commented on their post. V, That was a classic 80s TV miniseries. Those were fun. That was like an event with the family. You don't really have those because everybody wants to watch. Everybody's got choices.
Everything is streaming now, so it's whenever you want it versus it's on at Sunday at 8 and you have to watch it then.
Yeah.
And I do miss watching movies that have practical effects, and Poltergeist was one of them. They had amazing special effects that they had to build the sets, and it just whatever they like. I still watch that movie with awe because of all the little things that they did with that movie.
I can honestly say that movie still scares me to this day.
Practical effects, I wind up believing more than the CGI. It looks more real to me. I mean, if it's blended okay, it's cool, but these things like, oh, how can we save money? Well, CGI is pretty cheap now. We could pay big bucks. You give me practical effects, especially in horror. Horror's got to be practical effects.
Yeah.
I have to have practical effects. I can't stand CGI. What was that? A Malignant? When they started getting CGI crazy on that, which was pretty much since the start. Like, yeah, if this was practical effects, it might have more of a...
It killed me. So, like, we're into this movie, and I'm like, I know what this is. Like, I was so... I was interested because I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. Like, they made her, whatever. But the effects of it, I was like, no, stop.
You knew right away, too. You knew it was something like that where there's a reason.
I knew it was a parasitic twin.
Yeah.
But I figured that maybe she was possessed or whatever. And then I was like, oh, it's a parasitic twin.
I don't kind of let it be.
Like, okay, she was attached to the skull and they couldn't separate. It's like, that's kind of stupid. But I mean, the fact that it was all CGI and the weird motion. I don't know. I don't like it.
It looked weird. It looked really
bad.
It was really bad CGI. Terrible. When practical effects would have done and been more effective. I don't know. I can't stand the CGI in horror.
You can appreciate someone who really has to think how they want it to work if it's a practical effect. Like the whole shooting of, a werewolf transformation. Like you have to really think through how you want it to look because it has to look painful and genuine and interesting and scary all at the same time. And
nowadays it doesn't even matter. Nowadays it's a 12-second I'm a wolf. Back in The Howling, it's like a 10-minute scene with his face, crawling out the side. And if you show that to a kid now, they're going to be like, why isn't she running away? It's like, because she's scared to death, man. Robert Picardo's like head is exploding. Like, what are you talking about? You'd be scared crapless.
It was like Brian was like, you got to watch this movie. And I'm like, huh? And because I like werewolf movies. I love them. But so he was like, and I was like, that's disturbing. Like I was like, ugh. So,
I know a lot of people hated the remake of American Werewolf in London. Or in Paris, sorry. I thought it was I thought it was fun. Although it should have scared me a lot more because of the fact that I watched it when I was like 10. Yeah,
American Werewolf in London, to me, American Werewolf in London and The Howling are the 1 and 1A of werewolf movies. There, to me, has never been anything that's been close to touch those two. We did this. We talked werewolves and stuff on this the movie show that I do with Jim Noble and David Fott, and we were going back and forth on this. And to me, it's The Howling is 1, but American Werewolf in London is 1A. There's other good werewolf movies, but I always seem to come back to these two when it's like, hey, let's watch a werewolf movie. Okay, The Howling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like my first, Ginger Snaps. I was gonna actually mention that too. Like that, That was great.
You know, Ginger Snaps, I vaguely remember Ginger Snaps. And in fact, I have it coming. Yeah, I bought it on eBay the other day because I was like, I don't remember this movie at all. Everybody talks about it. So I'm going to buy it and I'm going to watch it and I'm going to be able to discuss it because I have almost no recollection of it, which kind of frightens me in that I didn't like it for some reason. But I don't remember not liking it either. So I'm thinking that maybe I saw it and I wasn't paying attention. So yeah, I'll let you know because it should be here soon.
I think I have the same problem. I have the same problem, dude. I swear to God, I know I've seen Gingerbread Man, but I cannot remember for the life of me if I liked it or didn't like it or why. I don't remember anything about it.
Snaps and Ginger Snaps Back is the
I think there's like 4 Ginger Snaps movies in total. I know there's got to be 3. I think there's 4.
I enjoyed the first 2. I didn't watch the other ones, I don't think. But but it's I don't know. I always watch it with a little bit of the like I'm just going to be scared and have fun. Like that's the whole thing. Yeah. It's like I understand there's some story that you're giving up.
Yeah.
But I think that's the adaptation. Like anything you adapt from some other thing is always going to be less in a way.
Oh,
like,
was it an adaptation of something?
No, I was just saying that you're taking a generally male character, although I know there are female werewolves. There has to be, but you're making.
Well, yeah, there was one in The Howling, and they were screwing as werewolves. What the hell am I looking at as a kid watching werewolves screw?
Werewolf porn.
Yeah,
that's what Brian says.
Do you guys remember that? Do you guys know the scene I'm talking about? Oh my God! All of you need to go to YouTube and watch the werewolf screw. So there's the girl werewolf, right, who ends up biting the dude, and they meet in the under the full moon in the forest, and they're kissing and making out. And as they're making out, they start turning into werewolves, and they're clawing each other, whatever. And then there's like this animated scene where the dude's on top of her, and it's an animated scene where they're clearly screwing, and suddenly it's like woo, full werewolf, and it pans up to the moon, and it's ooh, and that's what I'm watching when I'm 10 years old. Yeah.
And people wonder why we're warped.
I must have erased that out of my memory.
Oh my God.
It was disturbing.
Oh my God. Yeah.
I'll probably end up bringing that up at my next therapy session, or along with other repressed memories.
When did you show that movie? When did we watch that movie? Like I was in my 30s, and I was like, "What the fuck? The actual hell is happening right now?" Well, I wasn't in my 30s. I was in my 25-ish.
Oh, so good.
I really dated myself in this episode. I'm a lot older than I guess I look.
Elvira is another reason why I'm in love with horror movies as much as I am.
I saw in the movie theaters. My favorite part, as must have been 12 to 14, was the tassel scene at the end. Yes. That was like my favorite part of the movie. Yeah.
What's up, Mike? Glad you found us. Welcome. If Trish is there too, say hi to Trish.
Hey, Trish.
Oh, man.
But no, I will. I don't know what it is about. Like, I know a lot of people are like, "What is wrong with you?" When I start talking about horror movies and my favorite scenes of death, and then people are like, "What's wrong with you?" And it's like a lot of things.
You want the short list or the long list?
Yeah, exactly.
How about I give you the list of the things that are not wrong with me?
But no, it's like it. I'm glad that there are other people who like horror movies as much as I do, and I actually feel like I'm normal in a sense.
Honestly, with all the lockdown stuff in the last year or so for everybody, it's nice to have an outlet. And even last year, and I'm hoping this year, because I'm decorating the garage, I'm going to do a haunted house in the garage. And we never had trick-or-treaters for the first 6 years that I've worked here. And last year we were just slammed. We gave away so much candy. I had the animatronics going, and I just started collecting. So,
oh, nice.
We were going big time. But I think a lot of families were out trick or treating because it was the one thing they could do and get together and be outside and an event to do. And it was cool to see everybody and the kids dressed up. I hadn't seen it in 6 years, and I remember Halloween being my favorite, dressing up every year. I didn't want to stop trick or treating. It's like, aren't you a little old to be trick or treating? Yeah, but I'm still here.
Do you have candy in a bowl? Then no, I am not too old.
You don't want my trick, buddy. You don't want my trick. Give me a treat.
If I'm dressed up, you better hand me the candy because that's
right.
Like, it shouldn't matter how old I am. And you know what? If you think about it, wouldn't you rather have kids? Like, wouldn't you rather have kids out trick-or-treating and having that kind of fun as opposed to causing some other kind of chaos?
Oh, yeah. 100%.
Like, I mean, like, exactly. I feel like we don't allow our kids the opportunity to do those things anymore because it's, you know, too dangerous or whatever. And I get it. I mean, it is dangerous, but at the same time, it's like, why not go out as a family and enjoy it? Like,
right, and do it with your kids.
You know, I dress up every year.
My parents used to get home, let me check all your candy. And
but what blows my mind is
talked about
that was always Halloween. Is we'd get our candy, we'd come back, the Halloween movie would be on TV, and we'd watch it and eat candy, and then go to bed. I mean, that was it, man. That was the thing.
There was the razor blade thing.
That was actually in Halloween too.
Yeah, and that's where it came from.
Yeah.
Like, my parents even bought that. You gotta be, if you get an apple, you give it to us because there's razor blades in them. So we never ate anything that wasn't wrapped up. Like, they couldn't figure out a different way to do something terrible. Yeah, that's why that kid went to the hospital and everybody's wondering why his mouth's bleeding. He ate a razor. They kind of gave a little nod to that and kills. I don't know if that was noticed, but
nice.
There was
they
plenty of little nods.
Remember things from the other ones they didn't want to do. That's my big problem. Is I really enjoyed James Drew Courtney with that movie a lot. Everything he did, but it would have made more sense as a sequel. Where it's 78, it's just still one problem I have is it's just a regular serial killer. The whole town isn't going to flip out over 40-year-old murders of 14s. It's not like it was The Hospital or even Part 4 or anything else where people really experienced it. It was some teenagers that did. Most of them died, except for the kids. So
the thing that gets me, like, I'll go over to my in-laws and trying to ask my brother-in-law, you know, what their kids are into, and he's like, oh, they like Lego, and it's like, do they know anything about the Ghostbusters? They're like, oh no, they're too young for that. And it's like, how are you too young to know about the Ghostbusters?
I was 4.
Like, I saw the original one in the theater, which was cool.
Like, come on. We're collecting, me and Joe are collecting the stuff that, you know, it's the re-release stuff of the real Ghostbusters toys.
Oh my god!
Oh my god!
And we can't even share with them the DVDs of the real Ghostbusters show because they're too young for that. And it's like,
so if it happened in the 90s, like, my kids know about it. Like, if it was music, TV, movies, like, my kids know about it. So if it was within our purview when we were kids, like, my kids know about it. So my kids have watched The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. They've watched Family Matters. They've watched all the TV shows. They've also seen a lot of the movies. And so I think maybe nostalgia matters, but, like, I also realize, like, if I'm sitting here as a family, like, with my kids, I'm going to talk to them about what's happening on the TV. And so they're not entirely scarred by what they see because
you're just killing the mood.
But Sigourney Weaver in that dress, like, there was a lot of suggestivity in that scene. And I get why people might not be okay with it, but there's so many other things that are underlying in everything else we watch. Like if you've seen Disney, like there's a whole lot of jokes that the kids laugh at, but they don't have a clue what the joke means. But the joke is there for the adults in the room because they want to watch the movie too. And so like you have to kind of talk to your kids about what's real and what's fake and what's appropriate and what's not appropriate. Like, okay, my kids have watched every episode of What We Do in the Shadows.
Mm-hmm.
They have also watched every episode of the Harley Quinn cartoon, which probably either makes me the worst mother or the best mother. I don't know.
You saw Ben's watched every episode of Rick and Morty.
Oh, Jesus. That I did not know about. But anyways, it's not my thing. But
for Christians, like my brother and my sister-in-law, they're Christian churchgoers. You can read stuff in the Bible that is just as bad as watching an episode of Ghostbusters.
Sodom and Gomorrah, Jesus, like really? I mean, I guess like maybe a lot of the things I saw, nobody was explaining them to me when I was a kid. So,
well, when you're dealing with stuff like ghosts and stuff, especially when you're talking about religious elements, you start to have to explain about the devil and all that kind of thing. And those are discussions that a lot of people don't want to have. And then there's the Exorcist movie that, scares the piss out of the 50-year-old dude in cat ears. So,
but yeah, it was like stuff like that though. It's like they're okay with some stuff, but then, we can't. They don't want to come over because we have cats and their kids are afraid of cats. I'm just like, I almost want to show them sleepwalkers now.
Yeah, you'll never sleep again.
No, you got to show him Cat's Eye, where the cat's the hero. Show him the cat. He's the hero. He saves the kid from the little troll dude.
That movie scared the shit out of me too. Like, and I saw it. So when we were kids, when it was on TV, there was like the 2 a.m. like time period where there were just bizarre horror movies on all the time. And I feel like I was the worst sleeper ever. So if I fell asleep on the couch with my dad while he was watching TV, then I always woke up when there was some sort of weird ass movie on. And that movie was fucking on one night, and I don't think I slept for the next year. I seriously don't feel like I slept for the whole year. And then I saw it as an adult, and it was still had the same effect on me. I'm like, what is wrong with me? I'm a big chicken. Anyways.
You guys stayed up until 3?
Yeah, back in the day, kids, there was a thing called the TV Guide. It would tell you what's on TV for the whole week.
Yeah.
And we would get the TV Guide on Sunday night or Sunday with the newspaper. And me and my friends would just scour it for every hour of every day to find out, like, is there a Godzilla movie on this week? Like, and it's always on at like 3 a.m. And, we'd either set the VCR to tape it, or if we were having a sleepover, we'd have the alarm go off so that we could watch it. And it was all kinds of crazy crap was on all the time.
Oh my God.
Yep, I watched that. I was like 4. I woke up at that precise time that he's popping out of I'm just like, I can't. I can't. Then there was the whole thing about going to the video store and accidentally walking through the horror section, and you're just like looking at these covers of these videos, and you're just like, I'm terrified already. And I just saw the cover of the movie. Brian was laughing at me because I'd never seen popcorn. And he's like, I said, because the cover of the movie was scary. And Brian's like, you're sad. And then I was like, I've never seen Dolls, because the doll had her eyes like just holding under her eyes. I got problems. I'm just saying. I'm a chicken. But
it's funny that like every so often I'll make a movie reference to my husband, and he's like, what is that? I'm like, you haven't seen this movie? And it's like some obscure movie from like the early 90s, late 80s or something. And I'm just like, dude, watch a movie.
There are legitimately people that can't watch stuff, movies, TV, whatever. They just can't turn their brain off enough to absorb what they're watching. That's why the theater is such a great experience, because watching something at home, especially nowadays when you've got your phone and your computer and there's so much going on, you could be watching a movie on HBO, but not really watching it like, oh, okay, so you're distracted. And the theater, that's why the theater is such a great experience, because you're kind of just trapped there for a couple of hours in the dark, and you're like, the only thing that's happening is the movie. So while I am a big proponent of home theater, and I think, good speakers and a good TV and all that should be in everyone's home, I'll be running for president under that little umbrella, like everybody, home theater for everyone. I think that the experience of the theater is so unique and so much better for what it is that you're watching, because you at least you should be engaged with what's going on. That, when we started to hear about all these theaters potentially closing and maybe for good, I'm like, yeah, that's not good, because streaming is fine, but there's plenty of times when I stream something at home and I'm not paying attention. And I like Ginger Snaps. It's like, I'm 90% sure I saw that I rented it and I just wasn't paying attention when I was watching it. But if I had seen it in a theater, I would have been, in there.
For some reason, I want to say it's like one of those 3-story movies that come together at the end, but I don't remember. I just cannot. I know I've seen the movie. I just cannot remember anything about it. If you can, next time, if we're on again, remind me what that movie's about, because I have no idea. I'll have to see it.
Well, there is that.
I'm sure it's got to be on
thing.
The channels I got. I'm sure I can find it. No problem.
It's an anthology movie called Trick or Treat that came out, I don't know, 10 years ago or so. If you guys have seen that.
Yeah, that's great.
That's a fantastic one with
I got a Sam somewhere around here.
Rogue ends up being a werewolf at the end.
I really tried to get Oliver to dress up as Sam this year, and it just didn't work.
I'm really surprised that they have not done another one of those. Like, just do the same thing. Just do like Creep Show is the same thing. It's basically Creep Show, right? Yeah. Except that they had their Crypt Keeper was Sam. He was a little more interactive with the stories. But I'm really surprised that they haven't done another one. Just do another anthology run with that guy again. I think that would be gigantic.
You want to be Sam now?
It's shocking that there's not a sequel to it. The success and popularity, especially, I think it's even grown more over time.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. It's a cult classic now.
Absolutely.
He is going to do a remake. He had to do his Godzilla movie first.
A sequel? I guess he was doing Godzilla first. Again, why I don't know why Brian's not sitting here next to me. I don't.
Well, we tried.
He wants to be in the chat. He's being supportive in the chat. Hey, Brian, what's up, buddy?
He knows what scares me, hence the ghoulies in the toilet thing like that. I don't know. There was something too that somebody was. When we were watching In Search of Darkness, right? Like
hands down the best horror documentary.
So Brian backed In Search of Darkness, both of them, and they're going to do a third one. Oh, wow. And so he was talking about making sure that we back that one. And then he showed me the like trailer for that movie, and it had ghoulies in it. And I was like, son of a bitch, that movie come back to haunt me. But it really, like, I sat and I watched it with him. I think we watched it twice, right? And so I really learned a lot, and I was super excited, and I was like, this is really kind of cool. Shut up.
One of the things that got me into this stuff, and this is gonna sound retarded, but it's the truth. When I was a kid, they used to have a show that was hosted by Leonard Nimoy called In Search Of, and it's basically just all kinds of weird Loch Ness Monster and UFOs and whatever. So I would watch this, and there would be pictures, occasionally. There would be video occasionally, right? But what I didn't understand, because I don't remember it ever saying it on the screen, was the video was never stated as like staged footage or whatever. So I'm looking here and I'm watching things like In Search of the Headless Horseman, and there's video of the Headless Horseman running across the screen, and I'm like, yo, what are we in search of? It's right there. And I fully believed all of that stuff was real. And so that drove me into all of the monsters and ghosts and UFOs and everything, because I was never told that it was not real, especially when there was pictures and video, even though they made it all that crap up. So that's the kind of stuff. And this, I'll tell you what, the same thing happened. I don't know if you guys remember this. A number of years ago, I think it was the Discovery Channel did a documentary called Mermaids Found or something like that, where supposedly they had real mermaid footage, right? And they played this documentary, and I watched it, and I was like, this is like horribly CG'd. Like, this is so painfully CG'd. But the next day, there were people on the internet like, yo, have you seen this thing? They found real mermaids. And I'm like, okay, you're not old and you're not young enough to believe this is real mermaids. This is so horribly fake. But you're out here telling me that you watch Discovery and it's real mermaids, and you're like 30 years old. I'm like, this is ridiculous. They did the same thing with the Megalodon too, and they almost got me on that because it was really good footage and boats were tipping over and stuff. And I was like, yo, what is this? And then I realized, no, it's one of these mockumentary things. And yeah, but that I mean, literally what happened to me as a kid still happens clearly, even to adults who don't understand what CGI looks like. Yeah.
So there was a picture.
I'm not a CGI guy. I do not like CGI. I just don't. No. Even like when you see scenes with the Hulk and Marvel, it just doesn't fit in those movies for me, especially when you see it on a high definition TV, where in the movie theater it's clear, but it's not. I don't know. Something on TV, you see it and it looks really bad. Really
well,
bad.
When you're talking about modern TVs and like 4K video and all that kind of stuff, it strips out a lot of the production value and almost makes it too clean. And you'll see it a lot of times. They'll try and clean up old movies and they'll try and bring it into 4K, and it just doesn't look right. It doesn't. That grain makes it a movie, whereas a lot of this 4K stuff, it's so hyper clean that it just doesn't. It can't look real because it's too clean. It's too clean to even be real. So you're always better off having that sort of like slight grain to it to kind of make it a movie and kind of help all of the elements tie together versus everything that you're seeing on the screen being like perfectly balanced to everything else. It's definitely I know 100% what you're talking about. And there is really good CG, but at the same time, there's also just wonky CG.
Well, Star Wars is like my perfect example. I don't care the dirt and the grime that they made the originals look like. And then with the prequels, and I'm not a prequel hater. I didn't like the first two. I did like Revenge of the Sith. Thought it was a good Star Wars movie. But aside from whether I like it, the one thing I did not like was the ships were generic. They were polished. They were clean. And now it's the start of CGI. And they used a lot of it in that. And it took away the practical effects. And that's where I knew I'll never, even if it looks great, it always looks like a video game. It always gets outdated. Whereas practical effects, I don't care. If
well, that's who it's made for. Do you watch football at all?
I do.
Okay. I think it's NBC, but it's only one of the places that does. I don't think it's Fox. I think it's NBC. They have their cameras set up now so that when they're down on the field with the players, it looks like a video game. It is hyper sharp on the players, and the background is like blurred out, and it looks like a Madden video game.
So Madden doesn't have to put any effort into it. It's brilliant.
It's brilliant. Well, it's them trying to attract the Madden audience video game players, they're trying to match the visual. It's so freaking bizarre. Next time you watch football, now you'll know to look for it. I think it's NBC.
I've noticed it. I've noticed it in my own way. It's not as much like. See, I used to be a football fanatic. I had to watch everything, but I'm just going with my old dude. Hopefully, Tom Brady doesn't play another 20 years because when he's done with football, I'm done watching it. I am, and I don't mean it. It's like the last player that I root for. I stopped watching most sports, but it's my dude right there. He's an old guy. He's not that much younger than me, and the fact that he can throw the football where I'd feel like my arm would come out of its socket throwing it one time more than 20 yards. Gotta respect that dude a lot. But
for sure. Yeah.
So,
we lost Nicole. Nicole has vanished.
Yes, John, we are alive.
Did we freeze? What happened here? No,
I think he meant if we were still alive, but yeah. See, I'm a sports fan myself, and hockey season just started up for us, so it's the Jets are going to be playing again. Although one of our players are out with COVID right now, so.
I played hockey when I was a kid. I liked it. I wish I knew what I know now and gave the effort into it, but I just kind of skated through it. But I did love. I mean, that was the one sport I really enjoyed a lot. I still enjoy it. You got to be smart, especially. I wish I studied the game that I study it now as an older gentleman. But I miss playing that sport. It's just not as big here. I'm from Massachusetts, so Bruins, you'd be talking about the Boston Bruins here and there. Oh, you see the Bruins last night. Cam Neely scored a hat trick. And that was fun. I went to the original Boston Garden back when I was a kid. Got to see Ray Bourque, if you guys watch hockey, his 70 go from 7 and Esposito's number get retired and get raised to the banister at the old Garden, the original one. Worst place in the world. It was bad. But yeah, it was at that game where Ray Bourque went from 7 to 77. That was really cool. And they came back and beat the Rangers. Yeah, it was at that game. Long time ago.
I get really emotional when I see when I go to any sports game that like football, hockey, baseball. But I went to watch the Jets play against Edmonton Oilers, and I got pissed off at my team because all it was is it felt like I was just watching a hacky sack game. Like they just kept kicking, hitting the puck back and forth. I'm just like, and so I yelled out, "Would someone just fucking shoot already?"
I was actually at the game where Edmonton beat the Boston Bruins in the Stanley Cup Finals, so I got to see the Stanley Cup live. Pretty cool.
Oh wow!
Just didn't want to see it that night, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a good memory.
One of the best places to go to a game used to be the Kings, because they're the Kings, right? And yet they never won the cup. And then the Ducks won the cup first.
Yeah.
And suddenly everyone in LA that was a Kings fan was like, oh my God, the Ducks won a cup before we did. And it used to be great to go into LA Arena and just be like, so you're the Kings, right? Where's your banner exactly? I don't see it. And they would just get so upset because of the Ducks winning the cup before they did. And now that they won the cup, it's like, now it's not fun anymore. Now it doesn't matter.
See, okay, but here's the thing about the Ducks winning the cup. They had Timo Solani playing on their team.
Paul Correa. I mean, they had a team. Yeah, that was good.
Sometimes when it happens, look at the Red Sox. When we came back from down 0-3 against the Yankees, came back and won the series, and then swept the Cardinals. And we hadn't won since what was it, 1918? And it was,
man.
Yeah, I forget now, because now Boston wins so much. Even when the Patriots weren't good, I remember those days. But you couldn't even find them on TV. They were so bad. They were like the butt of the jokes. They were the laughing stock.
This year, though.
Yeah, they had a nice run, in the 2000s. They even had a decent run in the mid 90s with Drew Bledsoe. But once we won that Super Bowl and got over the hump, something changed, and it was like the Red Sox finally won the World Series, so everything.
Well, something changed. Drew Bledsoe got knocked out and replaced by Tom Brady. That's what changed.
Yeah, he's had a decent career, I hear. That Tom Brady, I heard he's doing all right.
I'm from Michigan, so guess what?
I'm in Kansas City right now, and I joke around. I didn't take it seriously, but we take digs at each other. Like I'll be rooting for, especially I root for Brady now. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, I'm a Patriots fan. I grew up next to it. I lived next to a New England Patriot. He took me to some games. I was a fan, but just done with sports. Like I just got so many other things. So I wish Tom Brady would retire, win a Super Bowl this year, and we could both retire from football. I'm ready. I'm ready to call it a day. And when I do, and he retires, if you need me to come on and make my football retirement announcement, not that I put any work into it, just hours of watching and rooting, I can finally take a break from football.
Such a weirdo. I swear to God. So I'm from Michigan, so we don't have a team that wins anything ever. So we got the Lions, the Tigers, Michigan.
Yeah,
football.
but Michigan isn't Michigan
State? Tom Brady, you had him.
Isn't Michigan where the cabin for Evil Dead is?
Dead. Yes.
Somewhere in Michigan. Yeah.
Yeah, that's our claim to fame.
But
that's where Bruce Campbell and Sam Raimi are from. So.
Oh, well, that makes sense. Yeah. All right.
That guy who does all those drawings, I got an Ash Evil Dead, Ash original upstairs. So, yeah, it's nice.
I had read because there was a time where I was looking at I was watching horror movies, and a lot of these things have this guy who goes around to the sets, the places that they filmed, and so I was like, well, that's kind of cool, and so I actually looked up the cabin because I was like, I wonder if this is like a real cabin. And it's like, oh yeah, it's in Michigan somewhere, but it's like somewhere down a really long road, and there's all kinds of signs like "Don't fucking come down here." So I'm like, oh, okay, so I'm not going to go to that place, unfortunately.
Yeah,
but there are places that you can go, and even though they don't necessarily look exactly like they did, 40 years ago,
we went to
there are some similarities.
We went to the Nightmare House.
Wow,
Nancy's house.
That's crazy.
When we were in LA, right?
Yeah. I got my Halloween costume in.
Chinese theater.
My good friend Boogeyman set me up for this Halloween for this haunted house. I'll give you guys a guess what I'm going to be.
Could it be? Would you be wearing that?
I don't know.
And I can't be doing that alone, so he sent me some coveralls. I'm kind of tall.
Nice.
So nice size. They got the Trick or Treat Kills ones, but I'm kind of tall, and it just gives like I'm not Michael Myers that they had in mind, I guess. And I almost got stuck in the thing because it's just too short. My shoulders pulling down.
Oh.
Gave myself a wedgie and Mr. Belvedere myself.
Brian has the things that you were talking about, the coveralls, and they're fine until you get to the ankles. And then they're kind of like pedal pushers, like
you've met me before, so I'm not a small guy either. Those things just don't fit me.
I was like, they gotta have like, I don't know.
There's no size for him. It's like, come on. But I know Boogie. He's taller than I am by at least an inch or so, and he's got a similar build. So he handed them over to me. These were his coveralls, so I got to give him a big thank you. I'm going to be doing a big unboxing. He's worn these for years. So, oh god, just kidding. But these are awesome. Like these will fit perfect. What a good dude. And he sent me this mask, so this is a new one. The other one has awesome. Yeah, he hand paints those. I think that's pretty awesome.
Yeah,
I gotta give him a shout out because he's planning on making me kills. He's been a real good friend. I met him in Florida when I was going to Phantasm, and I knew he was in the Doomsday's Crypt group, and I talked to him that I wanted to kind of see his stuff, and I needed a 2018, and we wound up giving one. He's like, give the other one, I'll make you another one, to James Jude Courtney. So he gave him a James Jude Courtney a mask, which I thought was really cool of him to do. And he took a lot of pride in what he did. He came through with that 2018. I keep getting more. Now he's making me a kills. So I told him, he sent me those coveralls. I'm gonna miss it. I'm gonna miss you. This is the one that's signed, but I think he deserves it as the mask maker, signed by James Jude Courtney and Nick Cass.
Oh wow! Oh, that's cool.
So he's been good to me. I'm gonna miss this guy. I'm gonna miss you. But I know it was hard for him to give up those coveralls too, because those were what he used to cosplay in, and he handed the torch over to me. He said, "So I can't wear that one."
I'm looking forward to all the pictures.
Yeah, we'll see. Hopefully, I can suck in the old gut and look good. Maybe I'll get a girdle it up.
I was just gonna say, but.
Worst
I need to send my husband to bed soon, but it was fun geeking out with you guys about this.
Brian is driving me crazy. So he wants to show you his must-own horror movies. Like,
okay,
just 5 of them, because there's like 600 of them on our shelves. But these are his 5.
All right.
The Burning.
Okay.
I've seen it, I think.
Prince of Darkness?
Prince of Darkness. I've never seen this one. I know it's a giant
cat. I've seen it.
I've never seen it.
Is that Donald Pleasance?
Yes.
Yeah. It's been a long time since I've seen that one.
Alice
It was pretty decent.
Is this the one where Alice Cooper's in the thing?
He's like the bum on the street.
Okay, yeah, I've seen this one. Night of the Living Dead.
No, Return. That's Return.
The Return of the Night.
Awesome.
Whatever. Same difference.
That artwork is phenomenal, though.
It's insane. I'm not a zombie girl. Like, I have a Marvel zombie shirt on, but that's because Brian bought the box and it was in my size. And I wear it to bed.
That's good.
This one.
Yeah.
And I don't think I've ever seen that one either.
What's it called?
The
Night of the Living Dead.
Night of the Living Dead. It's the George Romero
remake.
Oh no, I saw that. Didn't you have it? Oh, was that the last one yet? I just couldn't see it. It had a glare on it.
And then this was his other one. And I really did like this movie, but I'm not much for shark movies because apparently Brian thinks that it's hilarious to make me cry when I watch a shark movie. So Brian doesn't realize, like, I watched Jaws when I was like 4. And again, it's the whole what you don't see. And I'm like, because that's how you're going to get attacked by a shark. You're not going to see it coming.
Yeah.
It's going to be bam in your lunch.
You got to watch The Reef.
We did.
And 47 meters down, and he laughed the entire time. He thought it was the greatest thing ever to scare the hell out of me.
First of all, why do people not see the shark fins?
They do see the shark fins.
But it's too late.
Then why?
But it's too late. Your lunch. And this is why I stay on land. Among other things. Like, I don't know. If you know a good therapist,
no, I don't go in the water.
If you know a good therapist, apparently I need one, because
even beyond the movies, I've seen enough real shark attacks that I don't go.
Yeah,
in the
I'm
water.
not.
No, my husband will not watch. Well, he doesn't watch horror movies with me, but he won't watch anything shark related movies with me at all. We'll watch.
Brian said I had to show that too.
Yes, that's good.
Cool.
This is good.
Cool.
I just talked to him today, Daniel Camerudin. I just talked to him today. He's coming back for Ursa Minor next year.
I will find time at some point to read. Like there's a stack, like a massive stack of books that I need to read. And I'm like, this is what happens to me. I open the book. Somebody says, Mom, I close the book. I open the book. I read a sentence. I fall asleep. I'm never going to finish anything. So that's motherhood. But yeah. Was there anything else you wanted to add, Peanut Gallery?
I just wanted to say that this has been a fun show, and John, you definitely have to check out Tom's his comics. He's got some great stuff.
Absolutely, man. We'll send him my link so he can friend me on Facebook and vice versa. And we'll friend each other. We'll keep up. I enjoyed talking with all you guys as usual. Even Brian in the way back over there. He was great in the chat. He was the #1 chatter.
It's always nice to have those fans in the chat.
But I appreciate you guys inviting me.
Troll in the chat.
With you guys, I as usual, second time hanging out with you two, and first time with Tom, and both times have been a great time. I've enjoyed it.
It's always good to have you guys on the show, no matter what show it is, because you always add so much more.
And I said this last time that we'll have to all get together and chat about the Ghostbusters movie when we all see it, because
everybody cross their fingers, please. God, don't suck.
Good things, but let's. You heard good things about a lot of movies before they came out, and you know how they turn out. Where it's like the critics might score at this, but I've heard from some credible people that I don't have high expectations for it. I expect a cameo from the original and the handing of the torch. And I don't know. I like Paul Rudd and stuff, but the Stranger Things kids, it's like you just seen them in so many things. I wish they would have gotten some fresher faces, but I'm looking forward to it. I'm going in with an open mind. I'm going to definitely watch it.
Yeah.
I will definitely see it. I'm
looking forward to it. Like, I know it feels like, though, like we as fans take Ghostbusters way too serious. Meanwhile, it was originally like a Saturday Night Live skit.
It was a comedy. It was meant to be a comedy.
So,
you're sliding.
I think we need to. I think we need to realize that, you know, it's not meant to be something so serious.
Oh, no, definitely not. But it clearly has, like we talked about, there's very few things from the 80s, 70s, and 80s that have the staying power of things like. And there's really only 2 Ghostbusters movies, and then the thing we won't talk about, and now this. So, I mean, there's been cartoons and odds and ends of things, but to have 2 movies basically support a franchise for 40 years is pretty unbelievable. And that just shows you that the fan base is there for it. It's a shame that we lost Harold Ramis before, you know, they got to do this. That's a bummer. And I'm sure we'll get some sort of an homage to him, a little tribute. So that's a bummer. I will give you this prediction. I will almost guarantee you 99% that Louis Tully makes an appearance.
Oh, I would really hope so.
I would be shocked if this guy does not show up for some amount of screen time, even if it's just like an end credit scene of some sort.
Screen? No, screen.
I just think it's like anything. Independence Day, when they did their sequel. Let's see what. There's so many other movies that they just waited. Bill and Ted's, that last one was. It just, you're waiting too long. Even I'm hoping this new Matrix movie's good, but I think they kind of waited too long. I should have left it. There's just things that they're just not going to resonate the way they did unless you really change it, and then it's not what it was, and it just won't have the same effect. And a lot of movies tend to do this, and a lot of things do it, and then they want to reboot it. And
well, and the opposite side of that is also true, is you don't change anything, and it's just this nostalgic swamp of everything you've already seen, and with a couple of new characters, new actors doing the same thing. And that's what concerns me about the trailer is the Zool dog is in there. The Stay Puft cute marshmallow things are there to sell dolls like Baby Yoda. Like there's things that concern me from a nostalgia standpoint of the trailer. But at the same time, I feel like there's enough sort of fun modifications to the car, and there's like the drone guys, and there should be some fun elements that push it forward, but it is not the 2016, whatever that was. This is a direct sequel to what we had before.
I don't expect it to be as good as 1984, the original Ghostbusters.
No, not at all.
The sequel wasn't even the original Ghostbusters was much better than the sequel. I mean, the sequel I still like, but it was nowhere near on the same level of iconic.
Yep.
It rode that wave. That's why there really wasn't a third movie, I think, for so long. And I don't know. I hope they do a good job with it, but I'm not setting my expectations super high. If they can at least do a decent job, a solid job with handing the torch over, but I don't know what it is. I just think it's too late in a sense, but I'm going in with an open mind. I hope they prove me wrong that it's a movie that I'll be like, yeah, it's cool if it comes on, cool, but it's not going to be. I don't expect it to be 1984 Ghostbusters, but it'll be definitely something fun to talk about.
Yep.
Exactly. And if Tully doesn't show up, I really do hope that there's like a good nod to him. Because it's just, you can't have these characters without mentioning them.
Yeah.
I just hope they pass the torch a lot better than Star Wars did with Luke Skywalker passing his torch. I mean, let's just pass the torch with respect to the fans and to the characters. And I think since they're involved and Harold Ramis's son's involved and everything, I think we're going to get that. I mean, I don't know if it's going to deliver. I don't think it's going to be that mind-blowing movie. But I'm just hoping it's fun. A good handing off of the torch, and if it's worth something to carry on, they do and write a good story to it. But we'll see.
Yeah. I mean, even if this is the finale, just give us a good finale and wrap it up. I mean, I'm good with that too. I don't need another trilogy with the kids. Just give me a sort of okay.
I just want to see them, the three of them, since Ramis is dead. Give a good farewell to the fans.
Yeah,
exactly.
Even if they have to go out in a blaze of glory, just give us an ending. Give us something that we feel like their story is definitely complete.
Mm-hmm.
And they can hand the torch, and whatever they do, fine. They'll make a sequel, but hopefully they don't. But it's a good ending, like you said. I agree with that.
Dan Aykroyd has been trying to make this movie for years, and he's always been behind it, but it just never.
Bill Murray is apparently very difficult to work with, according to some sources.
Yeah.
After Groundhog Day, they wouldn't work together for a while. They wouldn't even talk, Ramis and Murray.
Yeah.
And I think that you can have the essence of what I think about Ghostbusters, anyways, was always Stan's, anyways. So it wasn't like he was the one that was the most excited about everything he was doing. And he was the one that was most exciting. So it doesn't surprise me that he'd still be involved in this one. The loss of Harold Ramis is a huge blow, but at the same time, there's really cool ways that they can share that, like out there to us. So it's like, well, we've lost them, but they're still kind of there in spirit. And to me, Venkman was always one of those characters. It was like you didn't really like him in the first place, so it didn't really matter.
You're missing one guy from the list there, Brian. The guy from Fight Club.
Yeah, the worst. And you put those two divas, Bill Murray and Chevy Chase. Everybody knows the legend of that when Chevy Chase came back to Saturday Night Live to host.
Yeah.
Two egos. I you know what though? I gotta say, I had a coworker, and he worked on larger than life Bill Murray movie, and he hung out and partied with Bill. He said he was really cool. He had a good experience. Maybe it's just a work experience. And
yeah, I think I've seen a lot of really cool Bill stories in the general world of Bill Murray. So I'm sure it's a very business-esque element that once he's on set, that's where it all goes down.
Yeah.
That's where you will not offend me.
Right.
You want to go have a beer? We'll go out after, but when we're here, it's work. It's my way or the highway. Yeah, I mean, I'm a fan of Bill Murray. I was a fan of Chevy Chase. I could see him being a total jerk, though. I would like Bill Murray. I think even though he's got his rumors or whatever, I've just heard such horror stories about Chevy Chase.
Yeah, just listen to the guys talk about him from Community.
Yeah, I love the Vacation series, except for Vegas, which kind of stunk. I loved him in Fletch. I loved him in Saturday Night Live. He was great, and he's fantastic.
His take on The Invisible Man was pretty good too.
Yeah.
Have you guys seen the memes that are floating around now? This crossing over Chevy with Halloween. You have the Clark Griswold and Russ, because Anthony Michael Hall.
Yeah.
It's like them sharing the beer, and he's saying, "Evil dies tonight, Russ."
Yeah, it's great. And then the one for Scott McDonald, the guy who was Little John from being on Mad TV. Get away!
Oh yeah.
God.
Yeah. The internet works fast, man. The internet works fast.
Yeah. I didn't even realize who it was, and I was a fan of Mad TV, but it's been 20 plus years. He kind of looked different, and he didn't have his wig on and his freckles and his shirt, his square patterned shirt that he always wore. Funny skit.
Oh yeah, he was great.
But it makes a good meme too now.
Yep.
All right. Well, Tom's having issues with his backdrop. I think it's
I just
time
knocked
to end
it
the
down.
show so that he can just toss everything down.
It's transforming into a werewolf.
Just let it go, man. I think
we'll let it roll up. But yeah, thanks for having me, guys. And anytime you want to do this again with whatever topic you want to do, Brian can always hit me up and we'll be fine.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm always willing to talk about movies and TV and whatever.
I always have fun. This is a fun show to come on and hang out with you guys. You guys all great. Brian's great. The last couple, the last people that were in the stream, I enjoyed talking to them too. And thank you again for having me.
I think it's because we don't have a direction. We just kind of talk about whatever.
Just come on the show and talk. That's basically.
And there's kids and animals involved too, so you never know what you're gonna get.
And I watched my language for the most part. I think I don't remember swearing.
I didn't, but I never do. So
I'm proud of myself.
Well, you guys are awesome, and if you guys have anything to promote, by all means, hit me up, and I'll definitely throw you up. And
yeah, I got an interview on Sunday with Laura Ellen Wilson. Okay. She's a UK actress. Last night, I sat down with Amanda Kruger herself, Beatrice. Oh God, I always screw up her name. Bupley. I got it right. I always screw it up, and I wind up screwing it up bad. It's the way it's spelled. I see it in my head, and then I forget how to pronounce it. Beatrice Bupley, was so cool hanging out. We talked for like 2.5 hours. So if you get a chance, check that out on YouTube. It was a lot of fun. She went into detail about a lot of things in her life since. It was kind of like this shooting the shit. I swore. See, I ruined it. Okay. I shooting the stuff, and we got into some really cool things, what she'd been doing in her years since being Amanda Kruger. So check that out. And thank you again.
No problem. So let me, where can we find you on social media, John?
Doomsday Script with the K. Okay. YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. I'm barely on Instagram, but I'm trying to get better.
Okay. And Tom, Big Dog Inc.
Yeah, Big Dog Inc. on Facebook, or you can just friend me up if you want to do that as well. And then on Twitter and Instagram, it's BDI Comics. yeah, that's what we do.
That's easy for me to remember because I have a BDI ice cream shop near my place. But Nicole, you and I are doing this show. Wait, you guys are out this weekend.
We're gonna be gone. We're gonna meet up with Henny and
go to AEW.
We're going to AEW.
Right.
Have fun.
So you have full reign.
I have the helm on tomorrow afternoon. So I do have one of my friends wanting to show up. So I have to touch base with him in the morning to see if he's still willing to jump on. He's an ex wrestler, so indie wrestler, which is cool. But we'll see if there's a Reels and Heels tomorrow. I'm sure there will be, but
and so you can find us on Reels and Heels every Saturday at 2:15 on Facebook and the whole gamut. And then you can see menageries of animals and children and dogs barking and
the crazy rat
craziness, because that's what we offer.
Yes.
And you guys can find us on Hanging with Web Show TV. I am your program director. We're on pretty much every social media platform. I am the social media socialite. I'm on pretty much everything as well, except TikTok. I'm still afraid of TikTok.
I'm on everything, but that doesn't mean I know how to use everything.
So yeah, I really hope that you guys enjoyed the show, and let's end the show with, where are you? There you are.
I'm GW Pomager.
I'm Dina Marie.
I'm Sage Ia.
I'm Thomas Carter Rochester.
I'm David Thompson.
Hi, I'm Kevin.
And I'm Mia.
Hi, I'm Mark.
Hey there, this is Dave Adams.
Hi, I'm Rosemary Rose.
Jerome Conner here.
Hey guys, it's Josh Bauer.
It's Willow Schuyler.
I'm Cosplay Michael.
I'm It's your boy Country.
I'm Ryan Permison.
And I'd like to ask you guys, please subscribe.
Please subscribe.
Please subscribe.
Please subscribe.
Please subscribe.
Please subscribe.
Please
subscribe.
Subscribe.
Please subscribe to HWWS
Web TV.
Great bunch of people.
And don't forget to smash the bell.
Ring that bell.
Smash that bell.
Hit that bell.
Hit the bell to be notified.
Hit the bell to get notified of new shows
and videos.
You're going to want to do that, so do that soon. So we can cross that 20,000 mark.
And get us to 100,000 subscribers.
To 1 million, and 10 million, and 100 million.
On HWWS.
Web TV.
You really like it. I guarantee it.
Thank you.